Hey guys, Roger Johnson, PRW Chassis, Performance Center Racing Warehouse. Gonna bring you another episode of The Grind. This episode features Kerry Bodenhamer, Greg Marlowe. Super good time. Got a chance to hear some of the old days, some Dale Earnhardt stories, some way things used to be, some way things are now. It was a great time. Hey, for all those customers that have been supporting us, I appreciate that. All the jigs are full. We're going as hard as we can go here at Performance Center, and I appreciate all you guys. Hope you guys like this. Thanks.
Yeah, we couldn't get your car this week. We had to do a
Radio show.
radio show.
Podcast
yeah.
is happening.
Podcast, yeah, podcast.
All right.
What is a podcast anyway?
It's just
I know Dale Jr. does one, and Kyle Petty
yeah,
does
his is
one.
good. Those guys, they got good stuff. I just do grassroots racing here.
Well, that's where it all starts. Technology's changed a lot over the years, you know. I remember when they first got on the soft spring big bar stuff, you know. I was at Hickory one day and that thing goes down the back stretch and this guy lets out out and it falls on the nose. I said, boy, I remember the days you look back, you'd think, boy, something broke in front of that thing. You ain't supposed to do that.
I can give you a perfect example. I was at Ace Speedway, and it was a Pro Cup car. I was still running a 900 and 850. And Shane Huffman and some of the boys said, Greg, you need to be on pair 400. I said, yeah, I've lost y'all's mind. This thing, it'll knock the fenders out of this car. And they kept on. So we were done pretty much. We had an hour left, so I throwed the biggest spring I had was like a 600-pound spring or something for the right rear, which I thought was crazy. I took the 250 or 225 I had in the right rear and put it in the left rear, put a pair of 400s on it. Biggest bar I had was like 1 3/4 inches or something. We stuck it in there and messed with it a minute and just shot out there to practice it. Now I'm nervous.
Yeah,
I'm running probably. Yeah. I'm running like a half. I feel like a half a second. So, well, first lap feels pretty good. Second lap, third lap, fourth lap, I'm quicker than I was on my sticker run. I'm on the radio by this time. Go to Billy Hess's, get the biggest right rear.
Trying to keep it.
Yeah. I said, I don't know what this is, but it's got to be something.
Yeah.
There you go.
And it just, the side grip and the way it held through the corners was just unbelievable to me.
It's a package, you know. It's not a spring or a shock. You got to do the whole thing. And sort of like seemed like at one time it got where you was putting the bodies on backwards of the springs you had them. You know, you had a lot of right rear and no left front. And,
Oh, yeah.
or left rear. And back in the day, you know, we run right front and no left front. But I guess they call it technology and innovation. Is that what it is, Roger? You're the new generation.
I don't know. It keeps changing, I think. But I
Daily.
think that technology is getting to a point where it's changing so fast that it's becoming hard for the people to interpret.
Well, I agree with that. But, you know, back during my era, especially, and probably the early part of Greg's, the technology came between your ears, not off of that computer.
100%.
And it took longer to get there. Our gigabytes wasn't quite where the computers are today. You know,
Yeah.
you couldn't sit there and draw it out on the computer and say, oh, yeah, this will work. We had to, just like you said, bolt it in there and convince somebody that it worked.
That's it. We drew it out on the floor if there was any drawing involved.
Yeah,
At least so we had a place to lay the metal we was cutting.
exactly.
Figure out what we was doing.
Used a lot of soapstone back in the day.
Yeah. So,
But the game has changed all around, don't you think?
I
mean,
do.
but you were successful in it, right? The UARA was
We had it, you know, as a car builder years ago we did, but it was just stock components that you beefed up a little bit and made work. And then technology came along, you know, computers and engineers and things that progressed the sport towards that today. But I'm not sure that that's a good thing at this point.
I don't know because it's the same thing. Like you built cars for Dale Earnhardt and guys, all kind of the legends in this sport. I watched Earnhardt in 79 or 78 right in there at Charlotte on bi-ply tires still at Charlotte. And they talking about these cars are loose in the corner. I watched Dale leading the race, smoking the right rear from the time he entered 3 till he come off 4.
And the spoiler laid down about 10 degrees, you know.
Just hazing, just like looked like it was out. They talk about y'all That was y'all, because it was y'all out.
Y'all pay attention because this boy's going to teach you a lesson.
Because he's rolling, boy.
That's where the word y'all come from. Y'all pay attention to this.
That's it, because he was coming. So it was, and those things, these cars today slip and it's over. It's just.
Yeah, I told somebody one day we was watching a race, and one of them said, well, he knocked the fender off. He's done for the day. And I said, could you imagine Kelly Yarborough coming down the racetrack, pit road, and said, Junior, I can't drive this thing. Left front fender's being on it. Could you just imagine what?
Different game.
Yeah, what?
Different game.
Yeah. We was at Daytona one year with AJ, and he said, take that rear spoiler off. I believe I can run faster without it. And I'm not lying to you. He come off a 4, and the back bumper was rubbing the wall. He was yawed.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Kevin going all the way around was the wall. He come in and said, we better put that thing back on there and put just a little more angle.
He might. That's
He didn't wreck it, but
He should have.
if a wall had been another foot out, he would have.
That's awesome.
But, it just like you say, they just drove it.
They did drive it. I mean, it just, and it's not the deal that they didn't have anything better to drive, because I got in. I'll be honest, you drove, and I drove later, and drove after I built cars for 3 or 4 years. I had some dumb idea to drive it one more time. And went to the racetrack, and they said, "What do you think?" I said, "I don't know. It drives so much better than anything I drove."
I'm not sure what
I don't
to
know
do.
what to do.
You don't, yeah.
It was unbelievable how much better it was. But.
Well, and that was me. I was blessed when I worked for Banjos. I had a store-bought race car, and everybody else had junkyard race cars. I took and built stuff at Banjos and took it home at night and built me a good race car. My race car was a whole lot better than my driver was at the time, but it made me look good, and we won a lot of races in it. But, it was all designed off of an old Ford. You just took a Galaxy snout, cut 2 inches out of it, moved steering box out where you get the headers on it, and go race it. It wasn't no.
Yeah, see, when I first started racing asphalt, I had the junkyard down the road. Every Camaro snout come in, they'd call me on the phone. We got a Camaro. So down, I'd go get the snout off, and take it off and bring it up there. And back then, if you bent the front end of the snout, you just cut it off in front of behind the steering box.
Went again.
Welded a new one on, and back to the racetrack you went.
There's still people do that. Ronnie Silver's grandson runs the Southeast Super Truck Limited deal.
Yeah.
And he called me one day. He said, how's these points supposed to line up on the lower? I said, what are you doing? He said, we're just pulling this thing around.
Yeah.
And, they heat it up and line it all up, and he goes and sits on the pole and wins the next race.
He won a couple, I think, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
That thing ain't never had a snout on this
Right.
20-year-old
He told
race
me.
car.
I was like,
And
wow.
I promise you, it ain't on no bump stops. Now, he don't qualify well. He'll be in the back just like his grandpa was. But at the end of the night, he'll be up front. Ronnie Silvers used to qualify way toward the back, but he run that same speed all night long.
I'll tell you another story of a guy like that. And this is the difference in the racer today and then. Dale Earnhardt's son, Kerry Earnhardt, running at Hickory, knocked the snout off 2-3 weeks in a row. They crashed. They called Dale and say, Dale, I think we're going to have another clip. He said, I ain't going to say what he said.
I know exactly what
But
he said.
he said, bring it to the farm. Took a bulldozer and put against torch, heat, beat, and bangs. There, it'll be fine. Went up there, run, Bernie, run.
Sure.
3 clips on.
I built him a brand new car for Tony Ure Jr. to drive. And it was at Tri-County. I think Tony hit the end of pit road or something and flipped it. And I set it on the jig, and I'm not lying. This thing, the right front corner's up probably 3 inches on it. So I called him up. He's deer hunting, him and Childers out in Texas. I said, this thing's junk. He said, send it back down the mountain. So I called him. They come got it. And he called me the next day. He said, that thing will be back up there in the morning. Said, put me a snout on it. And I'm not lying. Every joint in that roll bar had been heated. All the door bars.
Wow.
Probably used some of them same words you're talking about.
I'm sure.
But that thing sat flat on that jig, and we put a snout on it and back to the racetrack it went. Now, if it had been my own car, I might have considered that, but you're thinking, here's Dale Earnhardt. He don't do things like that. But he told me, he said, I don't have budgets. He said, we spend whatever we got to do to be competitive.
To race.
We're not going to waste it. We're not going to throw it away. We're not going to buy it because the Joneses bought it. We're going to buy it because we need it. He said, your needs don't get you in trouble. It's your wants that get you in trouble. And there's a lot of truth in that, you know. It's
I 100% think that's true every time.
But he grew up the same way, watching a guy race right out of a garage,
exactly.
fixing
I
everything
just
he
think
had to
when you
fix
worked
and
on your
beating
own
everybody.
stuff, it's a different gig. I think if you worked on your own stuff, it's a different gig. I think I don't. There's no way that we can expect people that don't work on their own things to understand. They don't. It
And
just
it's
doesn't
never,
happen.
It's never going to go back to the point, even like it's not going to go back from where I was at back to where Kerry and them was at,
Yeah.
or any of them, because they're Earnhardt and all of them, because it's just a different level of I don't know if it's racer or necessity now. I mean, I built motors. I built the motor, transmission, rear end,
Right.
every piece of the car at one
Right.
time or another to go race.
Well, that's the only way we
That
could.
was had.
That was the only way we could
Right.
afford to do it. I told him today if it was late model stock today and I had to race, couldn't do it. Couldn't afford it. There's no
Well,
possibility.
that's sort of where we were at. You know, I would go to a machine shop like Beer or Fryer or somebody, get my machine work done, and I might have them do the bottom end, but I could bolt the heads on it and torque them as good as they could, adjust the valves. And now them guys will take them apart at the racetrack, and then they basically take them back to the motor man to put them back together. And all you got to do is reverse the procedure where you take it apart. But
It was
Can't
the same,
do that
It
now.
was the same thing this year. They tore us down today, took heads off, intake off, and everything, and we was going to take it back up to Billy. And I said, Billy, is it all right if I put this thing back together?
Yeah.
He said, well, yeah, I figured you was. He said, 'cause I said, well, all I asked him was the head gasket number, and I went and got a head gasket
Sure.
and stuff and put her back together and raced again. I think we won the next week with it after.
that's what I say. You
Even
know?
the valves. Nobody runs their own valves anymore, do they?
No, it's
And we got great engine builders.
For sure.
And they
They
go
are.
to the racetrack
They are.
and do the things. And
But that's what you have to almost. That's the expected deal now.
but it's the same way. When I started my business, I used the UARA.
Sure.
Okay, I went to the races they had. They had the best thing out there going, the best people, the best
sure.
whole atmosphere. But at that particular time, most of the chassis builders wasn't going. They didn't.
No.
Have, the guys were just they'd got off. So and I didn't even know that at the time because all I'd ever done is raced and went to the racetrack. So when I jumped into this, well, I went right on to the racetrack. And the one thing I did different was, if it was Kerry's car broke something, I was over working on it. If it was Townsend's car broke something, I was over working. It didn't make any difference, and it didn't take long till a lot of the guys. There was 15 of my cars running there. So
For sure.
and it was.
exactly. You know, I remember back in the day when our stuff was doing pretty good. You know, people from way up next to Richmond would call wanting to buy cars. And they'd say, what's the difference in your car and Rick's car, whoever was up in Virginia buying
Yeah.
them? I said, you want an honest opinion? They said, yeah. I said, location. I mean,
That's it.
I believe our stuff's good, but their stuff's good.
Yep.
And you know, we're going to help you all we can, and they're going to help you all I can, but it's a combination to make you a winner. You're not going to go from running last to winning in our stuff, vice versa, you know. And I said, you need to just buy something local where you can have somebody help you like you're talking about.
And it's the same thing. I've told everybody, buying a car, buying any one of these guys' cars ain't going to take you from 15th to the win.
No.
It's all about the group
No
of
way,
people
right.
you have around you, the work, the ethic, the effort, the whole process. It's not a. And the problem is today, you see a lot of kids come through for a year or two. They learn how to sit in there and maybe go fast, but they don't learn how to race.
Yep. I agree.
And I think that shows some of the deal down the deal. Now it's drive in the back, knock them up the hill, and pass them. Back in the day, you could do that, and your nose would bleed right after the race. For some reason, you just had a sinus infection.
Sinus
You know,
infection.
it just didn't happen the way it happens today. But you didn't do those. You just didn't. You knew not to do those things.
Respect.
But it was a different.
Wasn't it?
Exactly. It was
I
a lot
think
of
it was.
respect.
I think it was.
It was a lot of respect, and it was, you couldn't afford it. I mean, to be
Yeah,
honest.
but the respect, I think, comes because most of those people worked on their own stuff, so they respected not wanting to tear it to the ground every week.
back in the day, you know, the Jack Ingrams, you know, he was a full-time racer. Bosco was a full-time racer. Morgan became a full-time racer. But there was a small handful of those that had full-time people, and usually it was the driver that was a full-time person. The rest of us worked a job and went home and worked till 12, 1 o'clock, and, you know, got up the next day and thought about what we was going to do the next night. And like you say, you couldn't afford to tear it up. Number one, you didn't have the time to get back to the next week, and you didn't have the funding to do it with.
That's right.
Now just drop it on and say, "Can I get that Friday? I got
That's
a
what
race
happens.
Saturday."
That's what happens.
Which is great for people like you.
100%. I've built a business around it.
Exactly.
Right? Like that's how much even Greg admits, right? That's how much the business has changed. Not that he didn't do a lot of that, but it's so much here. We're going to be there Sunday, not for just a clip. We want to pick it up rolling and push it in a trailer and get it on Thursday or Friday, which didn't happen a lot. Even 10 years ago didn't happen that much.
Here's the wild thing. When I did the deal with Childress and went to there, I was in a position where they would fix my car when it wrecked or something,
Right.
whatever. Not once did I wreck and was not the first guy in front of the gate. Not once. Because I was going to be the very first. I would be there 3:34 in the morning, just make sure nobody got in front of me asleep at the gate where nobody could get by me, because I'd pin it. They had to wake me up to go in.
That's awesome.
You know, but that was the thing, though. That was respect I had for them.
Sure.
You know,
You didn't show up at 11 o'clock and say, "Move all that out of the way. I got to get in
yeah,
here."
I did, and my car didn't come up there with the springs on it, hubs on it, motor in it. It didn't come up there. When it come up there, it was. If I had time, it didn't have the clip on it when it got there usually. But it, you know, it was a deal that was. That was the kind of difference today. They'll drop it off and want the oil changed in the process. And
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
woo. But
Rescaled the whole
that's a
deal.
good
push it
thing
out
for
the-
us.
Yeah, no, it's great as a business, but it's a difference.
The difference in atmosphere. That's what I'm talking about. That guy running first or 14th. you know.
Well, Phil Parsons crashed one time and we was at the racetrack. He said, "I need to get this thing back in a hurry." I said, "Well, get it up there. We'll have it done." We left the racetrack and we stopped and ate. Wasn't in no big hurry to get home. And when we got home from that racetrack, his race car was sitting there on the trailer in front of the door. I mean, they were just what you're saying. You went and got it done. It didn't matter what time it was,
Wow.
or you just done it, and it was a necessity to do it. It wasn't a luxury, you know. But today, how many people do that here?
Very few.
1 out of 50.
2, maybe. 1, 2.
I don't know. There's,
1, 2, maybe.
there's very few people bring a car. Like
the
I never brought a car with my spindles or anything on the car.
Actually, the big organizations that come, like the cup
Right,
teams that come,
right.
they're
Right.
But and you know, Lee Falk stuff, bigger, you know, but it comes clean rollers, suspension off a lot of time. But even with them, we do a lot of stuff wholeheartedly for them. So you know, it's
And the same thing.
Be like Junior was one time. I was working at Banjo's. They used to have them old reed trailers, you know, solid bottoms.
Yeah.
I had an old boy named Bear that worked for him, and he forgot to bring his tie down, so he just welded to the trailer, you know.
that's good stuff
I
there.
can,
So he goes in and gets home pretty late. Evidently had a few beverages somewhere between Arden and Wilkesboro. And so he just backs the truck up in front of the door, you know, where the guys can unload it the next morning. Well, they're out there.
check it out.
Junior Kyle wanted to know exactly what was going on.
Trying to figure it out here.
Yeah, he just welded to the trailer and went on. Well, luckily the weld didn't break and it didn't fall off, but yeah, it was just a different environment then, you know. And I guess for people like me that see where it was and where it is, it's encouraging to see that the sport grew to where it's at, but it's discouraging that you can't run a late model car now for what you used to run a cup car for.
No, that's yeah.
You can't. I mean, I realized when Brady was, what, 5? I'm like, I told Greg, I'm like, this is it. We're done. He's like, what do you mean?
Quarter
I'm like,
midgets.
yeah, we had quarter midgets lined up. I had 4 or 5 of them over there, right? And I looked at Greg and I said, this will be the end of this whole thing right here. We're going to get our whole fill right now because I can't afford. I mean, I can't spend $300,000 a year for your kid to race. I can't.
And he could go win every race at that 300,000, but that's not going to guarantee him a ride anywhere.
No.
And I don't know that you can get back to that because it goes back to the cup teams costing so much to do what they do. But you know, I remember a cup team back in the day. Of course, I keep talking back in the day because that's all I remember. But you know, I mean, Junior Johnson had maybe 6 or 8 people. Banjos, we had 7. and we built every car that was at Daytona one year except the Petty's. You know, we just done what we had to do, and wasn't none of us specialists. We just all jumped in there and done whatever we had to do, you know. And now you go over there and they got 400 people that work on 4 race cars. I mean, I don't understand it, but I do. I mean, I do. You know,
I seen it a couple of years ago. I was walking through a place, and I won't say no names. I was walking through the place, and there was a brand new Winston Cup chassis. Well, I think it was 8 people pushing this car on dollies. 8 people. And I was like, What has happened in this world? I mean, and they're like, they got it. I mean, every one of them's got their hand on it, but it couldn't have got away if it had motors on them dollies. I mean, I was like,
yeah,
it was amazing to me. It's things have changed. Like you say, specialists. I went and actually interviewed for a job one time, and they asked me, said, well, what do you do? I said, whatever you need done. They said, well, you know, I said, no to brakes. They said, how about put the motor in? And by that time, the boy that told me to come up here, he said, he can build the car if we need to build it.
Whatever we got to do.
This ain't it. But it's just that deal. They expect the guy to come in and say, I'm a tire specialist. I do transmissions. I do right front suspension.
Yeah. But back in the day, as a car builder or a business owner, you wanted somebody that could do it all.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine.
And now, you know, it got to the point, I think, you know, the Cup teams would hire somebody and their knowledge would get above where they went to work, and somebody'd come along and say, well, I'll give you X amount more a week, you know, and you
That's
bring
how
that
it happened.
knowledge to
That's
me.
it.
And now they're limited to the amount of knowledge they can get from that team to take with them, you
That's
know.
it.
And,
that is what changed it right there, though.
But don't you think that's what I actually think that's why this is going to somewhat help what they're doing? I think there'll be 1,500 or 3,000 people that completely disagree with me that got fired here recently. But I think what they're doing is at least going to help some of the technology, don't you? Because it's going to become more derived from the sanctioning body itself. So I think the technology is going to become limited in the areas that you can jack around. Or do you believe that because there's more rules, Greg and I have talked about it both ways, because there's more rules, it's going to now cost more again to try to keep altering the things as the sport changes?
The only thing that bothers me about this is, and Kerry can really elaborate on this, when actually even the Busch Series and all this, and we used to go to Hickory and watch this stuff when I was a kid, a template.
Sure.
I remember when they put the first thing on there. Oh, yeah, we're going to do this right here. And that's what Lynn Carroll told me this a couple of years ago at Martinsville. He said, we're going to fit these templates. I said, that's the worst mistake we've ever made here.
exactly what I thought.
I said, because I remember when it started with 1, 2, 26, and now look at that thing we have now. So,
yeah, all you're doing with the templates tell me where I can't cheat.
that's it. It's just giving
So now
you an
you
area
got
to
to
work
get
on.
creative and do what you do, you know.
Yeah.
And
I don't know anything about cheating. So
Yeah.
anything
Well,
you guys are
it's-
telling me is off. I don't have any idea.
cheating
About.
is when you get caught.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What was it? I think Larry McReynolds says you got the rule makers and the rule breakers.
That's right.
I'm sure Greg can look back in that rule book and see things that he probably had a part in getting put in it, and there's things in there that I have a part in getting put in it. And we wasn't cheating; we just interpreted rules different than what they did. So they came out with a lot of bulletins and a lot of rules.
A lot of explanations.
I was cleaning up the other day, and I found a whole box from the '90s of amendments and rule changes and things that still in the envelope from NASCAR.
No email. No social media.
U.S. mail.
U.S. mail, he said.
Yeah.
Mails like that.
Email. What's that? You know,
I thought I could get him there.
yeah, U.S. mail. But
Like me and Kerry was talking earlier, it's not only, we didn't have no cell phones. I mean, the first cell phone I got looked like a brick. I mean, it was,
still got mine.
it was like you could throw it and you could hurt somebody with it, you know, but it was, I mean, and that was the last thing. You never was on it. You might call one person, what do you use this thing for?
Yeah, because it costs $1 a minute to talk on it. Every time you went in a different county, it was another $3. So
Yes, and
Roaming
nobody used
fee.
that thing.
yeah, it was a roaming fee, you know. And I, like I say, was fortunate the business was good, and I had to have it, but because I'd be at the racetrack and need to call a shop. But you didn't lollygag. You got on there and talked about what you had to talk about and got off.
I can understand.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
Phone bill scare you every month when you got it, but you didn't take no pictures with it, and you
Didn't-
didn't Google nothing. Or,
What?
Yeah, and you get no emails on it.
Oh, jeez.
That's what I was talking, and even to the point back, we watched the first televised
Sure.
Daytona race.
I remember it like it was yesterday.
And that was just happened to be a weekend. It was snowing here and whatever, but it was just we were in the house and I'd listened to races for years on the radio on Sunday afternoon, whether you was at the lake or wherever. That was what we did. We loved the race. We went to the race on Saturday night, whether it was a dirt track or wherever it was, but you listened to the races on, and then they put it on TV. And it didn't deter any of us from every time when Charlotte opened, we were there.
Right.
I had a back road week there. I could get from Mooresville to there in about 30 minutes. Nobody ever drove. Now you can't. The same
You
roads,
can't do it,
everybody's
no.
there. I'm
Yeah.
like, where'd these people get? Figure this
Yeah,
out.
I remember that race. We had run the Saturday race with Donnie, and I was driving the truck home, and Bill Seifert was ahead of me there, and it got to snowing there about Brunswick, Georgia, down that way. And we pulled off in a I'll never forget it, Howard Johnson's big old long room, and had a little bitty television there, and it was the last 2 laps of that race. Of course, you know what happened. And, man, that was just, you couldn't have wrote a script any better for a televised race.
Not for the interest of today they
The
would be
sport.
mad.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Oh, we had a fight, but
Right.
because it's politically not correct. But back then, the best thing they had is put the next race on because everybody in the
Oh,
country
yeah.
was like everybody was watching up and down the East Coast, and they couldn't wait till next race. What was going to happen. So
And, that happened at Saturday night racing. I mean, and I got into it several times out here at Hickory with a couple of drivers over the years, and you settled your odds, It's like Settlemeyer and I got into it one time, and we'd had a pretty long summer, and we had a pretty big venture there to crash. He come up and he said, rumor has it you're going to crash me when I come back. And he said, he said, I have to pay for my stuff, and you can build your own. He said, we need to work this out. And I said, well, John, I'll tell you how it is, buddy. And he said, what's that? And I said, you know how rumors are? And he said, what? I said, sometimes you can believe them, sometimes you can't. And I just turned and walked off, but we never had any more trouble after that.
that's it.
Now, prior to that, we'd had several run-ins, but we settled it amongst ourselves,
Oh yeah.
Well, you didn't have social media to settle it on. You had to settle it right there.
Social media has been the best thing for racing,
I think it is too.
but it's one of the worst things for the sport because when we had the tour, I mean, trust me, I was.
Yeah, but it was early then.
Well,
That was right on the cusp. I think if you're 2 years earlier into it, it's probably not that good. And if you're 2 years later, it probably explodes big. Does that make sense? Because social media really has helped a lot of people.
It does, but it does a lot of damage.
In what way?
Well, you got guys on there that'll get on there and bash, and they done me that way in the
Sure.
tour.
Yes.
And you show them, well, here's why we got there and how we got
Here's
there.
a question. Do you think that it makes you look bad or you think it makes them look ignorant?
To the people that know, it makes them look ignorant.
Correct.
But
So
to
who
the
else
armchair
matters?
quarterbacks that's sitting here watching it on the internet that don't have a clue, it makes us look like an idiot.
But I think we need them to bitch.
It
Right?
still-
Don't like we need them
It still
to.
comes down to creating more interest.
Sure.
And when they, and it happens all the time, like at Hickory or anywhere, any racetrack, it doesn't make any difference where
Yeah.
it's there or where.
Right, for sure.
They constantly, it's just no different than Myrtle Beach. The first thing they were to jump up Saturday night and say, "Oh, that's it!" And I'm like, Jesus, we've been there for 4 days. They got this race in. Somebody needs to say thank you.
Right.
They
But
talk about technology changing, and these guys will say, well, on a simulator,
Yes.
well, the only simulator we had, you put it in the truck and went to the racetrack.
yeah. See that
We didn't have a reset button when you crash it back at the wall.
Yeah.
You just said, well, that didn't work. We got to go back and change something,
Obviously, these simulators, I've not been in the right one because I ain't found one that scared me yet.
Yeah.
And I've always getting that race car, you can tell when it's time to. that thing there, it's
there's
around.
some of your anatomy that's hooked together that causes changes.
Yeah, but
yeah.
in that thing in there and that deal like that, it's like, yeah, it didn't work. Whatever.
Yeah, if you're back in the fence, you just hit reset, go again, But
Wow.
You're exactly right.
You think e-games will make that to where that happens?
What?
Like the NASCAR e-games, like basically how they're racing online, how all the cup teams have a charter and people race online now for them. Do you think
Well,
that will
some
take
guy
over?
won $40,000 or something.
Yes.
They racing
Yeah.
online.
Yeah. Do you think that will take over for what we're doing now?
Yeah.
I'm fearful of it.
I'm afraid it will. I mean, I don't know what one of those setups costs.
So what? Say if you spend. So what? Say if you spend 20,000 on it, who cares? You ain't build
You
a
have
race car
compare
for
the-
20.
You can't build a race car for
100%.
20. And I
Same
was,
depreciation. By the time they leave, one's worth 15. The computer that you walk out of the store with is now worth 10. Same thing.
I was at a racetrack one day, and I kept hearing something, and it sounded like a Winston Cup car running. I thought, what is that? I was up in the tower, and I come down, and here's a guy with a trailer. He's got a big wraparound TV deals, and I mean, to sit there and watch that guy drive, it wasn't like you said, sitting in it,
Yeah.
but it was as close as you can get without being there.
And they got it today that, from what I understand, gives you the feeling 100%
So you're in
just
that
like you're in the
together?
car, getting ready to crash and do the whole deal. And I'm like,
There's a boy that used to work for me. It works in the NASCAR area now, and his job is to go to every racetrack, and they set up a gizmo, I'll call it, because I don't have all these big words.
Sure.
But he starts out at the bottom of the racetrack. He'll go and he'll move up a half a lane, and he'll go all the way around that racetrack until he gets to the top of the wall. He'll come in and get his little gizmo, put it back in the car, and he'll bring that back to the shop. And they'll plug all their data in, and it tells where every bump, every zit, crack, whatever's in that racetrack. And they put that in that simulator.
Track maps, they call them.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
yeah, I tell them boys still at Hickory, where the paver stopped here, if you're going outside, the cut's good. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember when they done that around there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And where that dump truck come in there and make that down, they don't hit that.
I got no idea what that. And they're telling me all the like trap mats and all that.
Yeah.
And that it hurts. I mean, but it makes you.
But wouldn't you have liked to
sometimes-
had access to some of that data when you were trying to figure it out on your own? I mean, you
It
had
would
to
have done
fi-
us any good. Then.
Back in the day, no, because I wouldn't have had enough knowledge to done it. I would have had to hired somebody, an engineer, to show me how to do it, and I didn't have time for that. I was too
Right.
busy building cars.
Right.
It's just like you
That's
you
awesome.
witnessed. I went through the process of track testing,
Oh, yeah.
data acquisition, all this stuff, 7 posts, shooker rigs,
Yeah.
everything. We did everything, all this stuff to gain grip. And I did this jack it up and check the wheels and to go out and just run.
Old school.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, maybe I don't. And my theory is behind that, I don't understand enough of what they were telling me or doing to benefit from it.
Exactly. Our technology at Banjo was we had a room back here. It was a secret room. Had a drafting board, and we had a front end suspension all laid out, and it was pieces of aluminum. It was all your suspension ports on pegs, and you could move it up and down and go through all your front end. That was our computer technology.
See how the gains worked. How the
Yeah, how much
change
camera
worked.
gain
If I change
change.
this length.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah.
if I move this, it'll stay straight.
What was the coolest thing in the secret room? There had to be one thing where you guys were like, man, sweet, we're hiding this back in there.
We made some trick ball joints one time, but
Yeah.
we had a real good machine shop. It was pretty close. We made some pretty interesting parts at the time.
I love interesting parts.
There was some creative people in that time. Precision Products probably started the aftermarket race car business. Because when Richard and Leo came along, he used old Corvette pulleys, and they kept, it was bad to break, you had to change. Well, they went and made aluminum pulleys. They come out with, they're going to cut the cost of pit stops, so they do away with impacts. Well, Leo then makes course studs and course lug nuts,
That's it.
The 311s weigh 250 pounds less than the 355s, so they got to weight hunting and they made everything out of aluminum hubs, and it just kept going from there and there and there. And I mean, they had a heck of a business over the years doing that. Of course, it all went out and expanded, and Now look at the industry it's created.
I was talking. You've got a chance to do promote and build cars, do so many different things like you talked about. What do you think that we need to do as a group to collectively get better? I don't think that you see things so much differently because you've just wore so many hats. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's why I don't have any hair.
Could be. Could be. I just.
I have. I've been blessed to work for well-known car builders, have my own business, drive,
Sure.
on a series, run a series, and look at all aspects of it, and talk to a lot of promoters. But you know, back in the day, and that's when everybody talks about. Well, back when it was good, we need to go back to that. Well, we can't do that. I mean, that's like water
No
going
way,
under
right.
the bridge. It's gone. You're not going to get it back. But you know, back in the day, a racetrack lived off of the grandstands and not the pit gate.
Right.
Well, then I think promoters got, I don't think greedy is the right word, but they got to realizing, hey, we can make money off of the back gate too. And we can make money off of the.
We'll sell parts right in the middle of your interview. I don't care. We'll do whatever.
Cha-ching.
Yeah.
But you know, we can make money off of tires, and we can make money off of gas, and pretty soon we forgot about the front gate and the spectators, and we look around and say, well, where'd they all go?
Right.
And I think you got to have an entertainment facility. I don't think there's any racer today that was a racer that I was, or Greg was, or probably you are, that's committed to it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
I agree.
There's a handful of them there, but you can't survive off that handful. Now, how do you fix that? I don't know. I mean, it's, you know, racetracks, they all struggle today to get people, and, you know, at the hint of a rain, they may call off. And unfortunately, a lot of times today, the racer dictates what the racetracks do. And when I say that, well, you're short of cars. You're not going to run me off.
No, for sure. 100%.
You know,
Because you have the leverage as a racer now. Before, you didn't have the leverage. You wanted to be part of the show. But now, racers feel like they are the show, so they expect to be able to get away with more.
Yeah, if you don't do something, I ain't coming back.
Correct.
You know? Well, like I've told them, I hate that. Good luck wherever you're going to go.
I've had promoters stop me on the way in and tell me straight up, if this ain't a show, you won't get paid.
Exactly.
If you stink this up, you'll not get paid.
I wish that happened more.
There was a promoter at Asheville one time. A boy won one of them lesser classes, you know, and he won everything coming and going. And he stopped the race. The boy had a gremlin. One of them little lightweight, you know. I mean, he was killing every week. He stopped the race, had a big race, stopped it in the middle of the show, and he said, gremlins are not legal anymore. Throwed him out right there halfway through.
That's awesome.
Because he told that boy, he said, you make a show out of it.
Yeah, that's it.
And the guy wouldn't do it, and he said, I go, we'll fix that.
Yeah. You'll
It
do it
taught
again
me.
next
But
time.
I mean, the promoter showed, you know, this is my show. We're going to go by my rules. And I don't think we have that mentality of a promoter today. They want, and I don't know that mentality would work today.
Right.
But
Different customer.
It
got
won't
it.
work because it's a different level of respect.
exactly.
Oh, the respect level is definitely different.
Yeah, and I don't know, you know.
But do you think that the respect is because it's scaling earlier? Meaning, many of the people that you raced with raced together for a longer period of time. Most of these younger people that come in are here 1 year, 2 year. Your guy was just figuring it out kind of in his third year. Does that make sense? And I don't mean
Yeah.
badly, but your guy probably didn't know tons of, man, we're just by the year 3, we're getting it figured out. Man, I like this kind of, or I don't like this. To where now, year 3, oh gosh, we got to find 12.5 million because we need to be in a truck. And I think it's short-term win, long-term loss.
I agree with that. And that's exactly where it's at today. I know people right now today that have a son that's successful Saturday night racer. And his goal right now is to where do I come up with the money to take him to the next step.
That should be his only goal.
And but
In my opinion, that's all that matters.
Their deal now is not. The bad part is it's left. Used to be your focus was how you performed in a circle.
Sure.
Today's focus is how you perform in front of the social media, the cameras, the whole deal to promote yourself to get money.
Yeah, but
If you can bring the money, if you have enough money, I'm not saying you that might be your first ride.
But see, I don't think that's not the game that changed, though, because I think all these people that you guys, even you to yourselves, have your own brand. So therefore, you have a lot of people that understand those things about you guys. I don't think many of these young people have, or not even young people, many of the racers have their own, they haven't been around long enough to establish a brand.
no.
So that's why it's all about the money. If you would be willing to beat people up on the front stretch or hang it all out there or not have to take 12 million and do this and that and whatever, and you are marketable, the guys like Richard or Dale Earnhardt or so many of the people that you worked with, they were marketing companies but didn't have to tell everybody about it. They had built such these enormous brands that their integrity was their marketing company, their brand. And I don't think we get to see anybody long enough for that now.
And I think that's what's causing the problem on Sunday.
Yeah,
There's
for
nobody
sure.
there because there's no brand to watch.
Correct.
Half of them, after the race is over, they walk out in the backyard going to a truck. They don't even know who they are.
Right.
No.
I mean, you didn't. At Wilkesboro, Ricky and Dale got in a fight. They had to hide in the floorboard to get out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I was at a jerk to my that had been trying to get the car they were in.
Exactly.
They could got out.
I mean, it's
and that's two of the bigger ones, but the same thing. The people at the racetrack knew everybody in the race.
Right.
But Greg, back when you raced and that race was over, was you trying to get out of there before the checkered field for the last race?
Never. And we talked about that a few years ago.
Ronnie Silvers and myself and a couple more would be right out there at Hickory, and Freeman was there. Was it Freeman that had it, or Hal Hamrick had it? And they'd come up and say, "Lock the gate when you leave." And there's a lot of times we'd be there with fans.
Hanging out.
Might have an adult beverage or two involved, but we'd be there when the sun come up.
Yeah.
Bench racing, you know?
There's many times that I stayed at Caraway or Hickory in places till they probably wasn't 15 people
Yeah.
left wandering around, just because people come out of the grandstands and you'd sign, talk to them, just some of them be mad at you, some of them be, but you talk to all of them. Just it was, hey, I know I hate running your guy, but that's part of it.
Well, and I hate to keep using him, but he's a good friend of mine. But Earnhardt was at Daytona one year, and he said, "Bodenhamer," he said, "you see those 80,000 people?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Every one of them come to watch me." I said, "Dale, you're pretty good, but you're not that good." He said, "Now listen to me." He said, "Some come to watch me win, some come to watch me get outrun, and some come to watch me wreck, but they all come to watch me."
He said if they booing or cheering, at least they're doing
At
something.
least they're paying attention. And that's true, you know. It's you look back over history, and Kyle Busch, you know, people despise him, but he's a talented race car driver.
No
He
more
is.
talent.
Yeah.
I don't know of anybody today that has, even back in the day, that has the talent that young man has.
You can like him, hate him, or whatever, but nobody that really is around racing can deny this young man's talent. He is
Not
as
a
talented as any race car driver we've ever watched or experienced.
Yes,
But
sir. He is.
There's no doubt about that. You can
But I
not
think-
like it or whatever, but
Yeah, but
it's
he
a
works
fact.
hard.
Well, he does. You know,
And I think a lot of people, not you guys for sure, but I think a lot of people forget that he works hard.
it goes back to what we've been talking about pretty much the whole show. You get out of it what you put into it, and he puts a lot in, he gets a lot out.
Sure.
It's no different. He went to Homestead the other day.
He was on one mission.
Right.
Yeah, he cared about nothing else. There was nothing that meant anything to him
Do you
except
think
running
that
that race.
through big business that we've stymied the learning of the racer? You two have been in so many shops, right? All the way up through from late model shops with Banjo Matthews to cup shops, right? Like of all the gamut. The interesting part that I'm trying to figure out right now is we don't let nobody in anywhere to learn nothing. So where did your customer base those years, where did they or where did they gain their knowledge from? From you guys, right?
Yeah, I mean, most of them started out as a backyard hobby, and then they grew into the point of coming to buy a store bought product from Greg or us or Hitchcock or Childress or
Any of the
Townsend or
guys.
whoever was building them at the
Sure.
time, and you took the time to help them and try to educate them and make them better. But they done a lot on their own, and I mean, there's a lot of my customers brought knowledge back that, gave us input. Well, that really wasn't the better deal. And, maybe we ought to try this or try that. And that's the way the sport evolved.
But now we keep everything secret. That's one of the things that I'm now finding is a problem, because if you're the dad that came from a quarter midget or from a legend car, and you contact Roger and you want him to build you a car, so he builds you a car. The interesting part that I'm realizing is that's not where it stops, because you have no idea where to get anything. And I don't mean anything like
Right.
wheels, tires, brake rotors. What I mean is you don't know if the wheel should be pointed left, right, flipped over backwards, or indifferent. And so have people always, is that the way we've gone? How can we make that better, you think? I think that's my biggest struggle.
I don't know that you can. I know back when I was in the car building business, all the time there were young guys coming there wanting to learn. And there's some of them right out there at Penske's right now that come to work for me couldn't even read a tape measure.
Sure.
But they turned out to be great employees. They had the desire and the want to. They knew they wanted to be a part of racing, but they couldn't afford to race.
Right. That's why I started.
So they got into the building side of it and working side of it, and went on up the ladder, And I'm sure you probably went through the same thing. How many of those kids knock on that door today?
None.
None.
I get onesie twosies from the,
The school.
school,
over there.
right? But I don't, not like before. You know what I mean? In the past 10 years, we never really had to go out and look for employees. They just kind of came, and right, Greg and I've talked about it immensely. They just kind of went through the program and drifted up through it. And now we really have to hunt, and it's more of a challenge.
But back in the day, Greg and myself and Hedgecock and all those, we were the schools.
Right.
We
Yeah.
trained the guys. And like I told Petrie one day, I said, you just need to pay me to educate all your guys. He had 2 cup teams, the next exit down, and money's flowing in from Square D and Country Time Lemonade, and just, it's unlimited funds. And I get a guy to be a good guy, and first thing you know, he's double the pay. Come down here and help me,
But it's the same thing. Like Kerry and Jay Hedgecock and those guys, Richard Town. There's thousands of people work through their deal and have spread out into the cup industry.
Sure.
Building cars at Petty's and all over the
Yeah.
place. That and just different areas. And today, the problem, it still comes down to that vision. There's no motivation. It's like, if you can't take this, you're not going there.
Exactly.
And it's the same. It's the jobs used to be when they went to work at a cup shop. They was 7 guys or 8 guys that drove to Dover,
Right.
worked, left Dover's racetrack, drove home, and didn't take 2 days off. Got the car unloaded out of the hauler, got everything ready, slept that night, went back to work to get ready to go to Martinsville or wherever the next Charlotte the next weekend. And
Done that a many a time.
and it's just it's turned into it's grown, and that's a great thing. But somehow we lost.
It's just a machine that eats money, I think.
We lost the focus of
You put in 20,
What
you,
our
you
deal
get 12
was.
out on the bottom. Right or no?
Get a bigger truck.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it.
But yeah, I mean, we go race in Texas. You didn't fly out there. Banjo did, but the rest of us drove out there.
Oh yeah.
And it was on the way because you went to Atlanta and took enough clothes to go to Texas to where you didn't have to come all the way back and go back, And like I say, you leave Texas and you and another driver drive all night where you can be home because you had to unload the car to get ready to go to the next show. And it was part of it. I mean, you done it. You didn't think twice about
And
it.
they're still doing this on Saturday. We watched we watched Myrtle Beach Speedway run on Sunday.
Yep.
3/4 of the people that were down there had to be work Monday.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now I was in a fortunate situation. I didn't, and I stayed and slept because I've done this so many times and drove home where my head's hanging, where I've got on cruise control and my waist is out the door,
Try to get
shaking my
Radio
head.
up, radio
Yeah.
down. Been there and
It's
done
just-
that.
heat up, heat down.
Water, anything
Right.
splashing, or just
Yeah.
trying to get to the house. And, you know, but there was so many guys talking down there, you know, they had to go. And we used to do it. That race used to be on Sunday every year. I'd get home at 5:30
Yes, sir.
and take a shower and go to work, you know, and just
Done that a many a time, you know. and-
that was never thought twice about it, you know, and
You just expected it.
yeah,
That was
today,
part of it.
and nobody ever, it's the same thing, you know, it's like even back in the 2000s when I went to work in an engine shop, I didn't know there was a quitting time. Nobody told me when they said they'd pay me this, they didn't say it was for 10 hours or 150 hours. They said, I'm going to pay you this. Well,
Yeah,
they didn't
be
tell
able
you.
to get it done.
Yeah,
you know.
they didn't tell you that we was going to make a qualifying run on this motor and we was going to be at Daytona, drive it back up here and rebuild it and have it back down on Saturday morning. So,
Yeah.
you know, but that was all part of the deal. It was just couldn't wait to do it. It was fun, man. And racing, I think, even at the cup level today is a job for most of those guys in it. It's a job.
Yeah.
In I'd say the 90s, it was a life.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, I agree
what
with
you
that.
lived. It was what you couldn't wait to do.
Yeah.
Today it's an employment.
Yeah, I mean, when I went to work for Banjo, I didn't tell him, but I would have went to work for nothing just to been a part of it. You know, just to try to.
I did. That's the way I did it. I had to work for nothing in the beginning. You couldn't get anybody
Well, I
to pay
pretty much
anything.
was, but
Yeah.
I got a little bit every week, you know, enough to keep me coming back. But
Then
So
not
get
me.
gas money to go
I
back on
lost. I went World of Outlaw Racing when I was 17, and I lost almost $7,000 that first year on the road. I made $210 a week. I couldn't live. It was $7. My dad was like, "So you're going to live on $30 a day?
yeah,
You can't even eat on $30 a day. What are you gonna?" That was it.
you know, it's just.
Hope they fed you at the track.
That's
dog.
it.
But you just love the sport that much that you done it, you know. And I don't know that love's there today. But there again, we didn't have 50 channels. We didn't have the internet.
Right.
I mean,
None of that
I
stuff.
sat there with my laptop Sunday night watching the race at Myrtle Beach.
Yeah. You liked it though, didn't you?
I do it all the time.
Light, yeah, but deep down you think this ain't good for the sport.
Why?
How much? Well, what
Yeah.
about the
Because I didn't pay a dime to do it.
Why does it have to pay?
Well, that promoter's got to pay his bills.
He does, but if he can get enough of you to watch it, he can pay somebody. See, that's where I think it all went bad. I think that people
Yeah,
stop
but-
showing a product. If you listen, this is the one thing I will prove. I might be completely full of shit about everything else that I say, but here's what I know. I know when you put something interesting on the internet, it takes off.
Oh,
and when you
yeah.
put something that is not interesting on the internet, it loses.
I agree,
So
I
he-
agree with that. I'm that much
the
internet
the
savvy,
the
yeah.
interesting part to me is that if the promoters, and I'm not picking on the promoters because I understand that's a thankless job of any, right? But if we can put on some way a show, people will watch. But we got to put on some kind of a show. People watch them videos where Langley getting body slammed on the hood got 12 million views, right? Like people will watch great content. That's great. I would pay to see that, right? Like it's just the racing needs to be good.
It's a change, and it goes back to dollars spent advertising. At one time, when TV came along for the cup business, it was great because the companies were looking for somewhere to spend money to promote their product.
Correct.
And now, I'd say if you go research it, there's a small portion of people, unless you're a lawyer or a drug company, that advertise on television.
Yeah, I don't think people can afford. There's no bang for your buck. The ROI is not there,
Exactly.
right? But that's where I think.
And that's where these computers and all will come in. That, you know, if somebody gets that right glitch and says, "All right, here's a program, you can get on board for X number of dollars." It's like Cup right now. I'd say if you took our TV money away,
it's over.
it'd be tough.
I think it will. That is when I'm scared. I'm not scared until the TV money renews. that's when I'm scared. Because I remember when, like, they got them big licks, and I was like, oh, I've never seen that much money. Remember, they used to print it in the newspaper, right? Like, and the numbers started growing, and well, you guys were there, right? Growing. Holy cow. Now the numbers went exponentially the other way, and I couldn't figure out how the guy that ran 35th got more money than the guy that ran 10th. Well, he was locked into some
plan A or B,
right?
you know.
And that's where my problem comes. I'd love to build and sell companies. The interesting part is, if you don't have the views on the internet, or on TV or on anything else like that, it makes it very, very difficult to then be able to sell it, I think.
Well, this is the new TV. I mean, that enables you to go out and acquire sponsorship. That a company that's advertising is looking for how many views for how many dollars.
For sure.
I mean, that's
For
bang
sure.
for your buck, and that's a whole world. It's not just a local network.
Agree.
You know?
Yeah, that's a World Wide Web.
But that's where I think that's where the interesting part, where I'm so disappointed that we're losing, from the simple fact, if you talk to anybody outside of our circle, let's say of this area, Asheville to South Carolina or Virginia, we're going to bring it in, right? Like kind of our area, the grassroots. Everybody on the outside wants to be in, and everybody on the inside wants to be out. I'm not saying everybody, but you understand what I'm saying. So
The majority.
my biggest question comes in: how are we not able to? Man, that saw is loud, is it not? The saw is super loud. How are we not?
Somebody got to pay for all this.
How that was a good one. How are we not showing it to everybody? How does everybody in the world not see the race that goes on at Hickory?
Well, and I don't know about.
Why
this.
would you not want everybody to see it? They all the people. I promise you that a man
You
at
do.
8:00 in Ohio would like to see Hickory Motor Speedway way more than a guy that lives in Morrisville. He doesn't care.
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. But when you take, and we keep using Hickory for example.
Sure, I'm not picking
It's
on him.
every racetrack.
Yeah.
But how do you take and tell a man that's got 250 people in the grandstands that internet's the greatest thing that ever happened to him? When he goes to write that lease check every month.
I think it's a different game.
Yeah, somehow.
If somebody would come up with an internet program and say, all right, we're gonna televise Hickory, we're gonna televise Myrtle Beach.
They got it
Fans' choice.
right.
Through NASCAR.
Correct.
Single source. You buy it off.
Oh,
once, you get it.
don't disagree. I mean, Tony Stevens is trying very hard, but he can't get the traction to get enough out of it.
You just you don't have the bucks to go against NASCAR. And NASCAR, trust me, they realize exactly what we're sitting here talking about. You know, they don't have a corporate sponsor lined up to go forward.
Sure.
And they're concerned that when the TV deal's over, that, you know, what's going to happen.
They're in trouble.
You know, so what they got to search for is new motor companies to come in and invest dollars and go down the road. But that doesn't help these local racetracks. It's developing new talent to go to that cup side of it.
100%.
And that's what you need to get back where it was. But how do you get that? So it's got to start with a Bandolero or a Legends car or here at Performance Center.
I just don't think people want to go to the racetrack anymore. I don't think people
Well,
want to
I
go to the
personally
baseball game. I don't think people want to go to the football game. I think if you could sit home and watch it on your TV and drink your own $5 pops.
Let me ask one question, and this because
Sure.
this is something that interests me. Cause I watch this about the sports, the baseball games,
Yeah,
and all this
sure.
stuff. But you go like Charlotte plays football and they don't have a huge crowd. Okay,
Right.
You got Green Bay, Wisconsin, in 0-degree weather, and you
Yes.
can't put another person in this place.
Well, and if you look at
I mean, but that's like they have
Brand.
the brand deal
For sure.
of people, and that's what we used to have. Cause Donnie Allison didn't show up at NASCAR and start driving Cup cars.
Sure, that's right.
Donnie Allison, when they said on Saturday night, Donnie Allison's coming, when they used to say Greg was coming or Kerry was coming or somebody, they was 500 people coming to the grandstands because I was coming.
Yeah.
Well, you put 525 or 30 cars, all of a sudden you got 3,000 people at the racetrack.
That's right.
Well, they don't have it now.
No.
Matt Dinabetto has done a
100%.
fantastic job as a young man.
I agree with that.
Unbelievable. A great talent in a race car, too.
But talk about
But
grinding, right? Like,
he's-
talk about a guy that, I mean, has ate shit and ate and ate it and ate it and ate it and took whatever he could get and scrapped and dug. I mean, like, most people would have give up 5, 6, 10 years ago, right? Like,
Well, that's that desire we've been talking about the whole show. You know,
had it.
he's got it, and he's got the package, but it's just
but that desire used to be what drew people to you. Now the problem is the barrier of entry is you just pay. In your deal, if you just paid, they kind of laughed at you, no? I mean, you were the rich guy that just owned a car dealership. There was probably some, right?
There was
Like,
always somebody.
Yeah.
that had
and I'm fine with that, but I just don't think that there was 13, 14, and 15-year-old kids that mom and dad were walking into places and saying, listen, I don't care what happens. You take little Billy and you let me know when you're done
Yeah.
with him, and I'm going to sign you a check, and you let me know.
First of all, when we raced, there wasn't no 13, 14, 15-year-old kids racing.
we
That
were probably guilty for starting that era of it.
that build. I don't know if it's that. It's just the whole industry.
If
I
you
think
did-
the top
listen.
ran down and started.
If you didn't start it, they were going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right, but I
allowed
think
it.
I mean it was our salvation because we could allow it in NASCAR, didn't we?
100%.
Yeah, that's what.
So we took guys that couldn't go racing and
And let
gave
them
them
race.
a place to race, and that was great for our tour for a while.
What was the hardest part about your tour? The hardest part.
I don't know.
I don't think I guess I didn't realize until I kind of
It was the
started
same thing.
figuring out how much promoters struggle with certain things and how big the swings are here and there, and to run a series like that. And that thing, I can remember 2009, 2010. That thing was, I mean, it was the heat. It was the deal.
It was, but it was that new generation coming along that I guess what happened. Hindsight's always 20/20.
Always.
And yeah, I've learned one thing throughout that venture. You got a racer's hat and you got a promoter's hat. And you got to take one off to do the other.
It's hard to wear both.
It's hard to wear both. And you try to do and do all the right things. And, you know, and it was just like what you said. You got guys that come in about a 2 or 3 year program, they're gone. Well, that next year you think, well, this is going to move up. Well, who's going to replace them? You know, you always
Right.
have that fear of people not coming back. So you think, well, if we could get established teams in here, then the teams will stay and bring the drivers with them. And we had that at one time, you know, with the Turner Scotts and
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
all the development teams, you know, and it was a win-win for everybody. But then that little guy with his pickup truck and 24-foot trailers looking around them tractor trailers, and he said, I ain't got no business here.
Right. I'm out.
You know, it's out of my league. I need to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I think that starts it, and then it was just a challenging business. You know, '08 when things got tight, you know, it backed things up a little bit, and it was just hard to ever recover that. And I guess being conservative rather than sort of like Greg and I were talking about driving, you know, I felt building cars was more substantial income than building was a whole lot better than driving them. But you look back at some of the guys you raced against and beat every week and how successful they were, you know, was that really the right decision?
Sure.
So,
Sure. Who knows, right? Whoever knows.
the one thing I learned throughout all my career is if I could go back and change any of it, would be listen to more people with gray hair. Because they're telling you,
I love it.
I mean, really, you think about it.
No, I love
You'll be
it.
there
I
when you
love
do.
it. I'm there now. I love it.
Those are the people that have lived it and done it. And granted, it all changes, but the bottom line is still all the same. I mean, when I grew up, there was 3 channels, you know, we all laugh about it. There's black and white, and there's on a TV about the size of that little screen.
We got color.
Yeah,
But
boy,
still
color.
had 3.
I remember we went to my uncle's. He had the first color TV I ever remember. And now you say, homie, we got 65, 80-inch TVs, surround sound. Why do you need to go to a racetrack?
I mean, I don't go to no local, no Winston.
Right.
I ain't went to a Winston Cup race in a while. But the reason I don't go to those races is it's not a race. I mean, I'll be
The
honest with you.
product's just not good. I
It's
don't
not
think.
good, and I think I'm going to say this out loud, and there are going to be some people not like this at all.
we-
I think a lot of problem in short track racing right now is the upper echelon. These guys have made an astronomical amount of money.
For sure.
You got Kyle Busch, you got Dale Jr., you got guys out there that are helping the situation. But these other guys that's made tremendous amount of money
They could care less.
wouldn't take much to make a huge difference, you know. And I'm not saying they have to, but we got the only way this short track program is going to make any kind of resurgence is that some of them guys are going to have to get involved and spend some of their money. These facilities, they got to close because they fell apart to the point that you can't hardly race on
The
them.
upgrades are going to cost more than the property's worth.
Yes, you cannot fix them because you got a racetrack over here that the property's worth $10 million, and the only deterrent on the $10 million is that track is in the way.
For
They
sure,
need
yeah.
to bulldoze it down, you know. And it's a shame. I mean, and it's not about bringing. It's just if you're going to keep short track racing, you're going to have to. Some of these tracks have to reinvest, and they don't have any money to invest. There's no way you can pave a racetrack or doing this thing off a gate.
So
it's not going to happen. You're not going to
Do you
make.
think the lemon has been squeezed too far that we're past the point of no return?
You write down every racetrack that's in our area, and you tell me how many owners actually run that racetrack. They're owned by somebody and leased by somebody else. Well, number one, you're not going to spend money on another person's facility.
That's right.
And make improvements. And you're over a barrel because your lease is so high you can't afford to. So it's a no-brainer. I mean, you can't fix that.
That's right. That's economics.
I don't it's like Hickory and some of these places, and I know they say the Tri-County just was purchased, and we don't. It's the same thing. I mean, you talked about. We all got to come together to try to build.
That's the only way. That's the only way.
But
We
you
can't
got
keep
you
tearing
got
it
to
down.
get the Denny Hamlins, the
got
Dale Earnhardt Juniors, the Tony Stewarts, the guys to invest. I'm not saying go out and build a racetrack and spend $20 million on it. Their appearance, which is only time and no cost, could work wonders for a racetrack.
Unbelievable.
Tony told me back in the sprint car days that was how he actually paid for all of his sprint car racing. He would go to those appearances, so he didn't have to take any of the money out of his own. He would go to these car dealership appearances or JD Byrider or different places like that, and he completely built his whole racing deal, the sprint car deal, based off of it. He said he wanted a new motor. He'd go sign autographs and make $30,000, and then you get a new motor.
I built some late models for a Cup guy, and the money he paid me was in cash envelopes, and it was appearance money.
Money, sure.
It wasn't his money. It was,
No, I know.
and there was plenty of it, But
And that's what I'm saying. They don't have to. It's not going to take them. Like Dale and all them guys, Junior and them. Some of them are reinvested in the sport. And
they are.
and they're helping tremendously. And but it's down to. It's got really close. We got to find a way to. We're not going to survive on 10, 12 cars. I'm just not going to.
No, but you take a name brand driver, come to a Hickory or a Tri-County or a South Boston or Caraway, and the racetrack be able to promote that he's coming, you can pack the house. Now, all they got to do is sign autographs. And they all say, well, we don't want to do that. Well, I don't know whether it's them as much as it is their marketing people not doing it because they're not getting their cut out of it.
And that's it. Management, the whole deal. There's 25 people in line to get that
I
portion of it.
had a Cup driver's marketing guy call me back during the tour days and want to know if we would allow his driver to come for free. Talked to him. I said, sure. Just tell him if he'll sign autographs at our session, I'll let him in for free. Oh, no, can't do that.
That wasn't what he wanted.
Can't do that. No, he gets $30,000 to sign autographs. I said, if he gets $30,000, he can buy a $35 pit pass. Well, long story short, come time to sign autographs, and I look down there, and guess who's there? That driver signing autographs.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Now we didn't advertise he was there.
Yeah.
But he probably as the driver wanted to come, and I'm sure the Mark guy, well, I'll get you in for free, because of who you are. But he didn't do nothing for me. Why should I do anything to him?
Yeah.
If he gets 30 grand an hour, I ain't gonna make that much at the racetrack on Friday night.
You think that's one of the reasons that the Cars Tour deal is successful, though? They seem to promote their drivers a lot. I see them being one of the only ones that really kind of do it. If you look around, go home today and go through any of the social media that you want to for many of the racetracks, and I want you to see that they don't spotlight any of their talent, any of them. They talk about the things that they're going on, or they're giving away bicycles. But how many times have you seen a racetrack this year do an interview with the driver from the inn and put it on any social media? I'm talking about anywhere. None.
No.
You see people like Race 22 do it. You see Doc Love do it. But you just said it. This is one of the things that's been driving me absolutely crazy is a lot of these racetracks, and I'm not picking on racetracks, they don't have a sign out in front of their building. Like, tell people the greatness. That's why I think if we start showing people some of the cool things that go on inside of them, that maybe we can get more people generated. Because nobody's saying anything about these young people.
Yeah, that's true.
The guy from Caraway, you told me, I never got a chance to meet the gentleman from Russell. And Greg I've listened to him now for 10 years tell me stories about things that the man was a promoter. He promoted the drivers in the deal. You in UAR promoted drivers in the deal.
All of them back in that day. Russell, Hal Hammer, those guys, they promoted their drivers.
Harmon.
Bob Harmon.
Bob Harmon, yeah.
I mean, and if there was a controversy, son, they kept her wound up.
You told me.
Humpy Wheeler.
When you got thrown out with that car.
Me and Mike Skinner was enemies.
Yeah.
And every night after the race, we was drinking beer together.
Yeah.
So, but we to race, we were brutal enemies. They thought going to wreck each other every week.
Yeah, just gonna come see who knocked who out.
Yeah.
That's just something that I really see that I can't figure out why a racetrack is not saying, hey, come look at these unbelievable gentlemen or ladies too. I'm not that we have in here. Nobody gives any kind of spotlight on any of the people that are there.
I really think some of that is the promoter's fault.
I think all of it's the promoter's fault.
But on the flip side of that coin, the fast-paced life that everybody lives today, it's hard to get people to commit and come and say, well, I'm going to drive to Hickory and do an interview or Statesville or Caraway and do some promotion to help the racetrack.
Yeah, but they're already there.
Back in the day, we done that.
Yeah, but what I think is messed up is you got them already there. You got them trapped, fish in a barrel. They're there for 3 hours. They open the gate at some of these racetracks at 7:30 in the morning. I walk around laughing because the whole time the guy that owns the facility, and this is multiple facilities, the guy that runs them, they're nowhere to be found. We have all these great young people that are trying to get all the exposure. This guy can't figure out why he can't get anybody in the stands. Well, nobody in the stands knows who's in the pits, and you won't tell them, so they're not going to come. Nobody's coming if they don't know.
I sort of contradict what I said a while ago. That part of it I agree with. When I was talking about Myrtle Beach and you watching the promoter not getting any money. Yeah. But that's from me as a spectator observing. Now, if the event's good enough and close enough, then it could encourage me to go maybe the next week, But
I just think we went to races. I went to races years ago because of the joy of them. Your buddy told you, hey, how about this? Well, that's what draws people in. If nobody tells the story, nobody gives a damn.
Well, that's true.
And it's the same thing. My kids, my boys, my oldest son still goes to races, takes his granddaughter to races. But it was a perfect example. I give them tickets last year, and they were there. This year, the tickets were too high. They didn't go.
Yeah.
I'm like, I went. I paid for it.
Right.
And if I'd have just known this, I'd have paid for their ticket.
Right.
But it's a perfect
just
thing.
Another place.
The expense has got to a point to get in the gate. I mean, used to be $8 to get in the gate. Now it's $25. And I don't know. It's still the same amount of time. It's still 24 hours in a day. The sun comes up and stays down.
You built
and all
a
this
following.
Stuff.
You guys were successful because you built a following.
But today
if you
they
build
act
a
like
following,
they have no time to do nothing.
Well, I don't disagree.
And I don't,
Well,
and I understand that. My time, I got way less time for some reason.
I'm retired and I don't have any
The
time.
gray-headed guy you talking about, they used
Yeah.
to tell me these days are going to go by faster. And I said, now, how can that happen? But
Well,
it definitely does.
Trust me.
evidently.
Yeah, just hang on. It's going to get better.
Can't get much quicker. I won't be able to get up and down.
I told somebody if the next 10 years speed up like the last 10, I'd get up, brush my teeth, and go back to bed because the
That's
day be over. I mean, there would be no time left.
It's like I get up early and early, and I swear to God, it's afternoon faster and faster. I don't know what.
But, you know, there was a show this year that I really thought about going to. But you got to look, and in time I drove down here, drove to that racetrack, went to that event with me and my wife, eat dinner, buy a tank of gas. You're looking at $200 to watch a race. Like I said, I don't watch it on TV.
Correct. I have one other question.
Now, I drove all the way to Darlington
You did.
to see all my old friends, and I left before the race come on to go back to the motel and watch it. But it's people that I hadn't saw in a long time. I hate to say that, but I went and saw all my friends, and I said, "Let's go. Race be starting about an hour." We went back to the motel. Of course, it rained, but worked out good. But
I remember moving here, and once I got into the machine here, I remember people on the inside that were the racers being very selective about who came from the outside. That was a big thing. You were either kind of in the group or you weren't in the group at that point. And the guys that were in the group, they got a chance to bill all the guys that weren't in the group whatever they wanted. Do you think that's just come to fruition now? Go ahead.
I may have to plead the fifth on this one.
Why?
Well, there's an imaginary line called the Mason-Dixon line.
But it doesn't matter. That's gone now, though. And I'm not saying I didn't know where you were going. I can't sell a car in Virginia to save my life. That's just, I can't do it.
Well, it goes back to location. I mean, why do they want to drag
They
six
don't.
tires?
They don't. And there's no way I can get them.
They can get a good product there.
100%.
It's like a promoter says, I don't understand why he's driving by my racetrack going to another racetrack. There's a reason for that.
For sure.
Now, if he's driving 8 hours down here, there's something wrong.
Right.
Somewhere,
It's the same reason. I raced asphalt 10, 11 years, short tracks around here. I raced 3 races a year at Hickory. First year I went over there. After that, I ain't been back except 1 or 3 races a year. Because I could go over there, and it was Hickory. And that's fine. But it didn't pay any difference for my bills, me going over there. If I went to Russell's place, we had 3 races a month that paid me $2,000, $3,000, and $4,000. And then I had to run that one race for $1,000. Well, I would do that because he was paying me $2,000, $3,000, and $4,000.
Right.
And
what I'm saying is people took care of each other inside that deal. Them people took care of you.
But back then it was a matter of economics. I mean, we had to do what we had to do to survive. I mean, I raced asphalt on Friday and Hickory on Saturday, and a lot of nights we'd crash and blow a motor, and you'd have to work all night to fix it, and you go in there and take a shower and come to Hickory and race, And
I used to have the stuff on my trailer to put my motor back together. So, because if they tore me down after the race, sometimes I stayed right there in the light, cleaned it up, put it back together so the silicone be dry.
New gaskets. Go ahead.
So I was ready to go, so we was going to the next place.
But you done that because you loved it and because you didn't have to buy a set of tires at Hickory, and you didn't have to buy. And there again, I'm not bad at Hickory, but it just I could take my tires from the river and basically use them at Hickory. And of course, we put 4 on the race, but at the end of the night, you could sell those to the limited guys. So, it
was just an ecosystem.
You sure offset some of your expenses.
Yeah.
Same deal with cars. I build, like my cars, I'd race them probably a year, and then I'd sell them to another late model guy or a limited guy. Or
when I drove and Joey and Brian Shelters, every 2 years I'd build a brand new car.
Yeah.
Because every 2 years I could sell my car for what a new car cost me.
Yeah.
My car, 2 years I could race it, or a lot of times in a year they would pay me enough for the car. I just built another new one.
Yeah.
Because they thought there was something
special
about that car, and I'm like, good luck with
trick.
Whatever you want to pay, I'm ready to get it. So, and we'd go, and I'd get another one and go. And I had a lot of luck because I worked on the cars and helped them people. There for I think I'd sold 8 or 9, 10 cars before I sold one to somebody that could not win.
Yeah.
But all the other times, the car won. I had a guy, I sold a car in Southern National and give them the setup, and they said, "This ain't no way you ran this." I said, "That's what I ran. And you don't have to run it. That's
Right.
fine." They called me down there, and they said, because I made a deal with them, if they had struggled, I would come down there and help them. They called me down there and said, "Well, what do you want to put on the car?" I said, "Them 4 shocks, them 4 springs, and everything I sold you on that sheet." "Really?" I went down there and I drove it first, and we was quick enough to qualify in the top 3 on used tires. And I said, "We're going to tighten it up a little bit. Well, he ain't going to drive it quite that loose."
Yeah.
Tighten it up a little. Boy won the race. The only race every one that week.
That's awesome.
Then they went back. Crew chief changed next week. Said, "Ain't no way that works."
Ain't no way that worked. Yeah. We won the race.
I
Ain't
said-
no way to work.
I'm like, "Well, if you, I can't fix that, so I'm not coming back." So I can't. But that's the kind of mentality, you know. And it's just today we can't. We build a car here, a brand new car, and once it's built and somebody runs it, it lost so much value. It's unbelievable. They don't turn around the value.
No.
It's unbelievable how much value they lose in 1 year.
Well, what's interesting too is a lot of people just throw them away now, right? Like they bought 1 year, we're going to buy new components for them or new chassis. We're going to keep our components and we're going to go again because that's what we think.
But, you was talking about football up north and snow in the stadium being full. Racing up north, I think, is pretty steady and strong now.
Yeah,
From the guys.
It amazingly is, yeah.
But I think what happens in this area
saturation.
is that mentality you're talking about is you got these cup guys, and that's the way we done it at Gibbs, or that's the way we done it at Schiller's. Is you run that thing, if it bends a little bit, you got to throw away and buy a brand new one. With all that comes at expense, and a lot of people don't have the money to pay for that expense.
You'd never believe this. I've been getting random calls. I think in the last month, I've sold 5 things, different people in Alaska.
Really?
Racing parts. Like we used to have some guys, remember, a long time ago in Canada, and now they have said that up there, I don't even know where they race. I must have got in with one guy because now I got 3 or 4 of his buddies. We've sent bump stops. We've sent all kind of things to where, and I asked him about. He says their car counts are strong, but they can only race 3 or 4 months of the year.
We had a guy come and race a tour with us one time from Alaska. He told me, he said, that's the first race that I ever ran at night. Because in Alaska, it's daylight all the time.
Oh, yeah, during that summer. Yeah, that's amazing.
I've never raced under the lights.
That's good stuff.
Huh.
So,
Never thought about it. That makes sense.
It does make sense. Greg gives me good advice all the time. What do you got?
Get out while you can.
No, that's weak. That's so weak.
Nah,
I didn't give him that one.
He gave me that one years ago.
Just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, you've got the right idea with the podcast, and the sport needs new directions, and it needs somebody with the logic to do it that understands the old side and how to turn it into the new side.
We got it's no different than I've said in the last couple months. I said, I don't know exactly what you're doing, but it's creating interest in the sport. That's what we have to create.
Is what I'm so worried about. Nobody, like I had those guys. I had Frankie Kerr. I had AJ Foyt just yelled and screamed all the time. He didn't really teach that much, but I had
worked for him one time.
A lot of these guys right there. I was able to learn so much from so many great people, and I just find it now that they're all locked behind closed doors. It's very difficult to get to some of those people. So I got to bring those people who are great and full of knowledge. I somehow have to try to pair the sides up.
Well, the key is connection between the sport and new potential customers.
For sure.
And that is a great way to do it. It's probably the easiest way to do it. Because you're not going to meet them at the racetrack. You might meet a few of them, but
it's just like you're saying about that other deal. Used to when I started running asphalt.
Sure.
Okay, I was racing dirt. Well, it ain't like I finished the race at Lancaster, South Carolina, come up here and rode a check, I'm gonna have an asphalt car.
Yeah.
Right.
I went to 20 asphalt races.
Right.
Every week we didn't race here. They was running on Sunday. I went to an asphalt race. They run on Friday night. I went to an asphalt race. This guy won. What was he? You know, I'm watching everything they're doing, trying to figure out. Well, today, the guy comes. He walks through the door. I got $350,000. I want 2 cars. I want this. Y'all get the best motor for it. Whatever. I mean, it's a different mentality because they know in 2-3 years they're going to unload this stuff if they buy their own stuff. You know, and we don't have. There's very few left, and unfortunately, this is the deal. They steal the 10 or 12 that was racing for 15 years, but that's the problem. Is only 10
or 12. Yeah.
They might be one year you get 14 cars at the racetrack because they got two guys going. Well, the problem is this deal is you got like Rev Racing or something, got 3 or 4 cars. You piss them off, then they go race somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, so they're in a quadrant too that you can't do but so much. You got to try to maintain the relationship, but maintain integrity, and that's a real fine line.
It's a fine line today to be able to do that. You know, I don't really know how you do it because
I don't either. That's the hardest part about it.
you know, if all these promoters will tell you the truth, they're all struggling.
Gotta be.
Every one of them.
Gotta be.
Every one of them.
Or they're subsidizing. I actually think maybe the racetrack is struggling, but they have this helping or this helping. If you look,
I guarantee you they do. If they didn't, they wouldn't be there.
But that's what I think is intriguing. It scares me. It seems like we can't just be fully vested in this racing. It has to, because it seems to just barely keep its head above water. You have to be vested in other things that allow you to do this and leave itself. Look at the people that are running the racetracks or the people. They almost all now today, everyone has to do something else that makes them an income, and then they do the racing is something that they love because there's not the $100,000 in it or $200,000 or $400,000.
It's the same difference. Even like when I went into building cars full time
Sure.
and doing this, everything went pretty good. It started out really great, and in 2008, like Kerry mentioned that number, we took a tremendous hit.
Yeah.
I mean, about half my income was home builders.
Sure.
And, man, they went from building 5 homes a year and racing all the time to like $400,000 or $500,000 went
Gone.
and over 10 guys went away, and and
Yeah.
that's when me and you actually talked.
Sure.
when you
Sure.
I said, to me this was a no-brainer. We put it under one roof and try to make it.
We were just dividing a pie so far. It didn't make any sense.
There wasn't enough
Exactly.
there, and I had employees, you had employees, you put them all under one roof, try to make the product better, go the direction we need to go, and grow the thing. It just, unfortunately, since the 2010, 11, right in 12 area there, the things went. It ain't went nowhere. We ain't really. If anything, we've went down more. There's been no racing growth, and that's the part that scares me. I never thought it went this far without having more growth again. Because in 2005, 6 through there, man, it was all. And Kerry knows as good as anybody. Building cars, you can build all the cars you want, but if they don't race them and wreck them, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Sad to say, but
It's the truth.
It's true. But it's. I've been at it since '68 or '9, and it's always been up and down, like you say. It would take a dive, but it would always come back and be a little higher, and it would dive again. It would come back and be a little higher, but it's always returned with some growth. But I don't say it's flatline, but it's just like a little bumpy road. It doesn't have the peaks and valleys aren't where they used to be, and I think, of course, a racer don't want to do it. I think inverting the fields. I think, my opinion, do away with these lucky dogs. If by God you get lapped, you need to figure out how to unlap it.
I told him.
Double file restarts, put the lap cars to the inside and race.
Yeah, I told him we was at Martinsville, and I said, how do you get back on the lead lap? Lucky dog. I said, oh, that's right. I forgot all that stuff.
Right.
I never had those. You had to fight your way back to the lead, or you wasn't getting back.
Yeah, you hoped you got to start far enough on that inside line that you could jump and there'd be another caution.
Because there was 2 races in.
Yeah.
There's still 2 races now, but it's not. When you start them up like that, this inside road, it was a lap down. couldn't just give way to those outside guys. Couldn't just like they now. That guy was racing me too hard. What
Right.
the hell is racing too hard?
Yeah.
That don't make
I
no
never
sense to
figured
me.
that one out.
You know, that's what they throw this flag. They said race.
That's it. That's
Let's
what we're doing.
race. You know, and I mean, you was trying to pass the leader. This guy's back here trying to get to the leader. You're trying to keep this other guy to lap down.
It's a race.
So there's 5 or 6 cars racing. You know?
Exactly.
Now there's 12 cars riding. You know, till the last.
Yeah, almost. If we're in 10th, that's a lucky dog spot. We stay there, then we'll get a free pass.
Yeah.
And these, what do they call them? Wrap around or move around, whatever, doing the cup.
Wave around.
Yeah, wave around.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't give nothing, make them race for it.
Yeah, make them earn it. And I think the same thing. I know they don't like this either. I think the whole franchise thing, the whole deal, has hurt the deal because there's no.
Yeah.
I think that's hurt it. I think back when you could buy one Winston Cup car.
You quit making
have
it a free market. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah.
As soon as you quit making it a free market, then we're in trouble.
It's almost something that. Well, I ain't gonna bring that up.
It's
It's a bad situation, I think, and I think that's actually hurt the product.
I think it has. I really do, and I think it trickles down to Saturday night racing. I mean, it's you go play baseball, you start out with t-ball and then
100%.
And you work your way up. Racing has to have that same thing, and it did at one time.
Yeah, but
did.
we eliminated all the barriers of entry. That's the only thing I can't figure out in this sport why it happened. And it hasn't. It's tried to happen in a couple other sports. We the shop we talked about this at lunch the other day. Michael Jordan tried to play baseball. They let him play baseball for a while until they realized, okay, this PR stunt is over. The problem that happened in our thing, in my opinion, is people went and bought this, but then it didn't. Nobody ever ran them out, so we didn't ever. There is very few people that are racing. You folks were racing to eat. I don't think people understand the disconnect. Nobody's racing to eat anymore. They don't care. Does that make sense? There's not going to be that passion. They don't give a shit.
We raced because we wanted to race.
That's it.
A lot of the kids that race today race because Daddy wanted to race, but he couldn't afford it. Well, Daddy's made a good
money.
career choice, and now that son's living Daddy's dream is what I think happened.
That was my gig. I don't think my kid was very good, and I think he got it from what it was to me. But I soon realized he was, not 10, 11, 12 years old. He didn't listen. He'd rather be playing with his buddies in the dirt, right? Like I'm over here with lasers on this quarter midget trying to string it all together, and then I was like, well, I'm an idiot. Yeah, I'm an idiot. Let him do what he wants to do.
I'm very, very thankful. I always had visions of my son taking over the race car business and following in my footsteps and going down the road. Well, we raced the slot cars and we went to the radio control cars and we done the go-kart route, and there wasn't no Legends or Bandoleros back then. So he said, Dad, I want a late model race. I said, that's fine. I said, there's a tube and rack. There's a parts room. I'll be behind you every step. When you cut the first piece of tubing, I'll be there to take it away from you. But I'm not starting. And thank God he went and got a good job and he makes good money.
That's exactly what I did. I told Clay Rogers the same thing. Clay, they wanted me to build him a car. I'm like, listen, we got all the parts in here to do it. If he starts, we'll go.
Yeah.
Needless to say, he never started.
Oh, listen, I built the car, done everything, had it in the trailer and all that stuff.
Oh, mine would have raced if I'd done that.
Went to the race and I done all this now, and I told him, and his mama told him, and everybody told him, said, boy, you better get with it. Because I told him, I said, this ain't my deal.
Right.
And finally, it come to a point, he come ask me one Thursday, how much we got left to do the car? Somebody need to unload it. I backed it to the door just like I do every Sunday morning at 7 o'clock to get it out. But not no more. I'm not getting it out no more.
But, back in the day, there again, we didn't have anything we built our own hot rods. We didn't go buy GT Mustangs or Hellcat Dodges. We took a Cadillac motor and put it in an old Ford or something, and made hot rods. And you were creative and had the ability to do the things that we're talking about doing. And today's kids, they don't have that environment. It's Daddy goes and buys them a hot rod buys him a car, and I can't say anything. I'm guilty. I've done it for my son.
And I think that's the thing. We wanted to do it because we know how hard it was to get that first one and build something. And
Exactly.
you know,
And you think, well, I'm gonna make that step easy for him,
yeah.
but
I don't know. Maybe that step ought to have been just like it always was. It might have taught more. It might have taught more or something. I don't know. But
I don't know. There's got to be an answer. I don't think racing 22 times a year at one racetrack's the answer.
I don't either.
I think you got to have an entertainment facility. I think you got to have a feeder system that gets them hooked and gets them coming. And today you got to hook that kid. And maybe we used to race go-karts at Hickory. Maybe you need to start a go-kart deal or a bandolero deal at Hickory or Caraway. And again, I'm not having Hickory. I'm just
Hickory's is just close to us. That's all.
Right. This is our home
and it's a great.
place to go.
It's a great. I mean, it's all the history's there. Everything's there. So it's there it's there. It just right now, they always had great car counts there, but it's just right now we're just struggling everywhere to get in.
Well, that's the thing. Where's your inventory? It's like the guys that bought Tri-County. Where's their inventory coming from? I'm sure some of the guys that are mad at somebody else.
That's it.
Might come, but and that's the way they're going to look at it. We don't have to put up with him. We're going to go over here and race.
Right.
Well, the problem is they're hunting a perfect racetrack and a perfect promoter, and that doesn't exist. They need to be saying, hey, we can run Friday night and Saturday night.
Yeah. Yeah.
That ain't
happening.
They don't want to run four.
No.
I mean, Caraway used to run 34 weekends a year. And I was there all 34.
Exactly.
I mean, it didn't make any difference what
happened. It would have been there more if
it
had run them.
If it opened the gate. I ran other tracks, besides
That's
that.
awesome.
But it was just like, I mean, golly. But now they're like, they would see 30 races on schedule. No, we're not going there. I think that's what broke Caraway, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
They didn't jump off of that deal early enough.
What about Tri-County? I've heard all kind of things. Have you heard any goodness that you want to tell anybody?
There's a good group has purchased it. They've got good ideas.
Good. They said they would have an announcement out, I think, next week or something.
Yeah,
I saw.
Yeah, they're going to announce it next week. And, it's a good group of people. I've known them for a long time, and they've been successful in the business they've got, and I think they'll be successful in this business. But it's going to be a different business than any. But I really think they'll. If they can make a go, if anybody can make a go of it, I think these people will be able to.
That's good. That would be beneficial for us as a business. We'll support them however we can.
And hopefully,
I hope to go I hope to go.
Right.
I love that place.
And there again, it'd be nice if him and Hickory can work together and I
had heard rumblings that they had already kind of worked some things out.
I think they talked some, yeah.
That's what we need. We need small concessions from everybody, I think. Nobody pushing the whole pot in the middle, but just, if everybody gives a small amount, maybe we can make it work.
It used to be in Virginia and North Carolina, actually. It was South Boston, Orange County, and Motor Mile. They rotated right around.
Well, but the thing about it, Greg, everybody talks about going back. When you raced and I raced, and we had that man on the racetrack, when you rolled in that gate, you pulled that book out, and that's what you went by. It didn't matter whether you was at South Boston or Caraway or Hickory or Asheville or Greenville or wherever. When that NASCAR rule book come out, that's what you went by. And today, you might as well not even have that book.
No.
Because the promoter wants to utilize it unless his racer says, well, we need to do this.
Right.
Or we need to change it.
Doesn't appeal to the mass.
Well,
it's got leverage, just like you said earlier, because there's only 8 or 9 of them now.
Well, here's something you can definitely shed light on, because I know you were, and I was around when benefited from a lot of it. I wasn't really around. I was around, but I wasn't in the actually racing at the time. The whole NASCAR Winston Racing Series, and this is because that's what the Busch Grand National was.
Yeah.
Hickory Sportsman or Hickory Late Model Stock or whatever you want to call it. That is Busch Grand National. That's what was the Busch Series, and went to Xfinity, and from Grand National to Xfinity and the whole deal.
In the 80s, it was the same boat we're in now. Late model racing got too expensive for Hickories and the Tri-Counties and the Saturday nights. And NASCAR came along and created the Busch Series. And, well, it was actually the Budweiser Series originally, but it gave the guys a group instead of them doing it all on their own. And they made it work with each racetrack. You know, that the racetracks actually became a benefit from it because they had the premier drivers show up. You know, we had a national championship points race. And to me, NASCAR needs to revalue that and look at it and say, look, we're going to, we'll run a national late model sportsman, or whatever we want to call it, late model stock, late model sport, whatever you call it, basically by their NASCAR late model rule book. And we're going to have 2 at Hickory, 2 at Tri-County, 2 at Caraway, 2 at, and that will be our national champion. And it's going to pay $150,000 to win the championship or whatever. Make it valuable for them.
Well, that's the problem, right? Isn't that what NASCAR used to do for people?
They did.
That's what I'm confused. I'm so confused, and I'd love to talk to guys like you guys that were there. My opinion was that NASCAR used to promote it, and let me rephrase. NASCAR was what you needed to get the media attention that you needed to make it. Now the problem is nobody's promoting anybody except themselves, trying to squeeze the money they get, and there's no seeds back. It doesn't seem like we create anything for renewable the next year. Those are the things we cut. We cut the national championship purse. We cut it because it doesn't appeal to us right now. Nobody's turning into a national champion tomorrow and racing in the Cup deal. I think it all gets skimmed.
When you stop there, R.J. Reynolds, T. Wayne was my first cousin, and he and I talked a lot about it.
This is what I wanted you to really.
And when R.J. Reynolds came along, I mean, they had an astronomical amount of money to spend for the Winston Racing Series. And they would go to each racetrack, and they had a budget that they had to spend every year. And they would go to a local racetrack and say, here's 20 grand, put on a big show. And if they were spending $2 million in the series, Reynolds was spending $2 million promoting it. So it was really a $4 million deal.
Wow.
And, yeah, I don't know what the exact numbers were, but I mean,
still, yeah, right.
But I remember Dan Henley, he was sort of under T. Wayne and Seagraves. They were talking about, he was at the shop one time. He said, it's November. I've got $400,000 I've got to give to somebody because our budget runs out. And they were going around and putting up new scoreboards and building new press boxes and,
All kind of stuff.
Working on the facilities. It didn't cost NASCAR a dime. And that's what needs to go back to the racetracks today. NASCAR, and they may not be able to do it.
They may have lost the spot. They had the financial. They've made all the money. They just quit distributing any of it. And right now, their products went down, so they're not making the money.
That's how businesses die.
And
Whether it's NASCAR racing or a business,
and
if you suffocate the business and purge all the money out of it, you lose.
It's
That's
no
it.
different. Any business, you take you
100%.
take your employees and hold their head hostage.
That's it.
You won't win.
100%.
You better support the guys that are supporting you.
Yeah,
or the thing ain't gonna
they're the
benefit.
ones that make you work.
That's
exactly.
what's going to make it work.
And that's what local racetracks need is NASCAR to go out and it's somebody that, if you had $1.5 million, you could go in and say, all right, we're going to spend $750,000 or $500,000, whatever, throughout 10 racetracks or whatever's NASCAR a member of, and the rest of it we're going to pay into a point fund, or we're going to improve the facilities, and here's the criteria. And that wouldn't be nothing to somebody like NASCAR.
Winston, T. Wayne, and that bunch. They got all the paint came from them.
Oh, yeah.
All that red was Winston Racing Series. All that stuff came from Winston.
But
I don't know. I don't know how many Road to Charlotte Winston Racing Series deals and got. They paid we'd run the big race at Caraway on Wednesday night. It was a Winston race. It was Winston. They paid
Yeah.
they paid the winner's purse.
Yeah.
Caraway didn't. They just paid the rest of it.
Well, they done that. I don't think it's all about the money, because there's big paying races that nobody shows up.
I don't think
It's
sometimes
the
I'm confused.
entertainment value. It's like Martinsville. Everybody gets on social media and condemns Martinsville. I'm never going back. Yep. But come next year, they'll all be back.
Right.
And the reason there's fans there is there's a lot of beating and banging and gouging. There's entertainment.
It means something.
It's a race.
This year
still
was
means
born
something.
because it was run like a racer would want it run.
Well, it's
Pretty much straight up.
I liked it. Right beside Josh kicking everybody's butt. I thought.
Here's the thing. 97. David had done the same thing. Sat on pole, led every lap. Now everybody, I don't know what the deal is. They didn't watch the rest of the race because this guy was whipped him. I had a flat tire. I was the only car that passed him, but I had to pass him to get a lap back because they didn't give you a lap back.
Didn't have no lucky dog.
So we drove back through the field, and they seen a lot of people racing through the field. That was the same race this year. Josh won the race, but I didn't watch him ride around in front. I watched the rest of the race. It was a good race in the rest of the race. But you're going to have, I don't care what racing, I don't care what division, there's going to be that day, everybody wants it, that your car, when you climb through the window, is going to be flawless.
Right.
Yeah.
And you might get it once out of 100 wins or whatever it is, but it happens every once in a while. And, man, I said, it's no different than I told them. I said, boys, enjoy it, because you never know when it's coming back.
Yeah, that's right. It may be one a minute. It may be the last.
Yeah,
never know,
you just don't know for sure what's going to happen. It ain't no different than Darrell Waltrip and them guys. When they won their last race, they did not think that was going to be it. They didn't have any idea. And
I mean, Jimmy Johnson is like he just fell off the ladder.
Yeah.
I mean,
really,
Right.
the
Couldn't hardly be
organization
beat.
didn't change, but he went from being the dominant to struggling. Well, I don't say struggling, but
it's
Not what you expected from him.
It's
more
no
than that,
different
right?
than, and even like, let's bring up what we in our Earnhardt, when they switched to radials, he didn't like it.
him or Rush
Didn't
either
like
one.
it.
No.
And they struggled to make that transition. Once they went through that deal to where they said, we better get to where
Now
we
we
like
got it.
this.
Yeah, we have to like it or quit.
We either got to get going or we're going our butt's going to be out, and that's how they made their money.
Yeah.
And it,
Yeah.
and that
You're retired, Greg. He keeps trying to slip off into retirement, and I keep dragging him back out. What? How's retired life? You and Wink hanging out? I mean, that's a good time.
She's got a pretty big honeydew list.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh, I dread that day.
I figured out retirement, you spend all your life accumulating things. And retirement is you spend the rest of your days keeping up what you spend all your life buying.
That's good times right there.
That's good.
So,
What are your plans? I know you help
I'm
a
done.
few
No, I'm
races.
done.
You're done.
I'm done.
You're out all the way out.
I never thought I would say this, but I really don't have any desire to go to races.
That's okay though, right? I mean,
I don't know what it is or not. I mean, for somebody that's done it all their life, I feel like I'm a product of what we're sitting here talking about.
yeah.
I mean, you do something for 50 years, and then all of a sudden you don't want to do it. I mean, there's something wrong with that picture.
That's what scares me, because I know just 4 years ago or 5 years ago how much it meant to me to go to the racetrack every weekend. And 5 years ago, they're going to run a race this weekend somewhere. I'd have probably been there, and they're going to run a race in the next weekend. I'd have probably been there too. But right now, I told them the night when I got home, I'm done. I'm not going anywhere else this year. And that's
You got that little grand youngin'.
that's
It makes a
everything.
big difference.
It is. It's
We
huge,
keep ours.
man.
We keep ours after school. Wouldn't trade it for the world. He'll be 11 next month, and been blessed to be able to do that, and we've just. It's like Greg talking about days getting short. I don't know where they go, but I can sure wear them out.
I'm telling you, it's
My mother used to always ask me, what are you going to do tomorrow? And I said, well, call me tomorrow night, Mom. I'll let you know, because subject to change first thing in the morning.
Yeah,
you
could
don't,
happen.
You don't know. It just take them day at a time, because the days don't last all the time, and
I appreciate you swinging all the way down here. I've been trying to get you down here for a little while. I know you.
well, we
It's a long
appreciate-
way, and
We
you.
appreciate the invite and having us on here, and you'll probably get a lot of complaints off this.
Oh, I'm sure my DMs, direct messages will blow up like crazy after this. We'll get all kind of people wanting to know what was happening Greg's gonna stick around here. We'll probably he'll go back to work, and I'll go back to doing something else that I do.
Well,
And,
I feel you guys. I'm going back home.
yeah, I figured you were gonna.
About quitting time. What time is it?
By the time you get back home, Wink will have dinner ready. It'll be perfect for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If we don't get it done today, we'll do it tomorrow.
that's all right too. Yeah,
Let's keep the ball rolling and the podcast going, and hopefully everybody will grab a hold and do just a little bit. And if they do,
that's all we need. Just a little bit.
nobody needs to do it all. Just everybody do a little, And it'd be nice if you get all the promoters to work together, but we all know that's like getting racers to work together. It works till they all walk out that door.
Sometimes it don't even work that long.
I never forget, and I think it was 2000, something like that. They always talking these crate motors and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, we got these bolts sealed. We're going to put this seal on them. I give them the bolts the first meeting. They said, "Where'd you get them?"
Yeah.
Man made them, man duplicate.
Right, that's exactly
I said,
right.
If you talking about, I mean, if I think you got it sealed, the first thing I'm doing is going in it. I'm all in. I said, that's just. I said, this is just y'all just creating another war. Is what.
Well, there again,
And they were trying to do something to help. They
were.
Them.
But it goes back. It goes back to technology. You go to NASCAR's website today, and you look for a job application. And you got to have some kind of bachelor's degree or some kind of degree to get a job. Now, all the people that made that business a success, the degree they had was the grunt work they done on Friday and Saturday to get them there.
That's
That's
it.
it.
They didn't go over here to some school that says this is what it's
And you know
gonna
what
be.
else, though? I think from a younger guy that was in that, I completely think you're 100% right. I respected those gentlemen an unbelievable amount because I realized how that wasn't a glamorous gig. That wasn't them guys worked hard and did the things that they needed to do to build this huge brand that they did. Brands don't build to be huge if everybody's making $1 million. Brands build huge when everybody's not making anything and you're just turning the till. And they all did that. And I think that was one of the huge upswings that happened. Those people were pot committed. And now I think it's very difficult to get somebody pot committed for 50 or 60,000. And I don't think they received that back then. Right? Like,
No, it wasn't about the money back in. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, that's what I
100%.
say. It wasn't about money. It was about the sport. I mean, I know people say, "Well, you're crazy," but it really wasn't. I mean,
Everybody loved it, man. It's just what we wanted to do.
if it's like getting paid to do your hobby, it's. I could name you and Greg could too. List after list after list of people that have contributed to sport that would do it for little or no money, and
For
probably
sure.
as a second job for free, just to be able to put that uniform on and go do it.
Yeah, and it's just and this is why baseball and the sports are still good. These guys in AAA and 1A and all this, they ain't making no money.
Right, that's
They're working
right.
other jobs to go play
that's the
baseball
thing
and
I don't.
stuff.
Right.
But and they're still fighting to get there, fighting to get the chance to do that because they still have a dream of making it to the big leagues. They still is a feeder system to get them to the big leagues. There's no, it's over.
But the owner doesn't. The owner doesn't compromise the brand. Richard Childress, as soon as he puts somebody in there that pays, compromises the brand.
Well, and that's going to be the only salvation. And we're just hypothetically speaking. But
Sure.
you take a guy like Hendricks that was at the top of the food chain, and he had Jimmy Johnson winning everything coming right and left. And then all of a sudden, Rick looks around and says, "Look, here's a pay driver. Here's a pay driver. There's a pay driver." Now, all of a sudden, we going from being at the top of the chain, our stock values are changing. With that being said, it may be that people with talent
Yep.
can get in that product, and somebody like Rick or Childress or whoever, I've got to have a winning driver here so my product is more valuable.
Good. That's what we need to happen. That would be amazing.
It's why.
But that value
it's
has to
why-
be worth more than 14 or 15 million that somebody's willing to write a check to get in.
It's why
$7.5 million, I heard, to drive a Gibbs Bush car.
That's right. It's
Gibbs
the same.
Bush car.
It's the same reason
That ain't even a cup
that
car.
Josh Berry's
Xfinity, I'm sorry.
Same. No, I was with you. I have a Bush car.
Josh Berry's late model deal is a good deal
Yep.
because that guy wins.
Yeah.
It's hard to get in another rental car and say, you can give him the same stuff that this guy's driving, but if well, I didn't win. I'll get in this car. He looks over there and he says, well, we just won with the same stuff you won with. It's the same scenario.
The bad part is people don't realize he's been building that thing for 10 years down there. Like,
Oh,
I think that's what
geez.
I think everybody will wake up like, oh, what happened to Josh Berry? Like, what part did you not understand? He's been building this kid for 10 years now. Like, you don't think he's going to do that? What
He's
part did you not
tremendous.
see?
But that's the way it used to be.
But that's a fine example. Back in the day, a kid like Barry, with the talent that he's got and a connection like with Junior,
Yep.
he would
He would have made it.
have
Right.
made it. And
You can't get out of late model. Not dogging him. Right.
He should make it.
He-
He's
right.
good enough to be
Yeah,
there
he
right
is.
now. He's way better, and I'll say this out loud. He's way better than a lot of the guys up there racing in that deal right now. He should be in that sport.
Yeah.
There's several of them. Williams, another one. These guys that have paid their dues.
I agree.
And they're all over the country, just not here.
I agree.
Oh,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're from coast to coast, border to border. No different than Kevin Harvick or some of them guys coming. They're good enough to do what they're doing. Kevin Harvick's the one that has grasped the whole thing the best. He got his own marketing company, the whole deal, representing golfers, representing stuff. When he goes to drive your car, he's bringing the money, so he is controlling the situation.
That's it. I think that's something that I find really intriguing too. The dads that have the money have no idea that they have the leverage. Like, they think it's a gift to get to be able to give $4 million to someone, which I find intriguing as the fact of, like, a lot of times there's terrible decisions that are made because of that. Does that make sense? I mean, terrible decisions. Just because you drive for RCR or Dale Jr. or doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're going to win. Like, because we're trying to control so much of the money, I think it gets so skewed because people think that that's a value proposition. That $4.5 million because this guy wants $5.5. What in the hell? That's a lot of money.
Like a motor builder told me one time, he said, I can build 2 motors and set them in the floor. He said, I can put an $18,000 price tag on one, a $10,000 price tag on the other one. He said, I can't give that $10,000 away. Everybody thinks the $18,000 is going to be better because it costs more.
Yep.
And that goes back to what you're talking about with teams. Now, the bottom line is who's winning and who's not. And money creates some of that, but not all of it. Preparation, meeting opportunity is what creates wins, not checkbooks.
But do you think that that's true still? Because I used to believe that with all of my being. I used to really believe that with all of my being. That if you just continued to trudge but now I think if I had to do it for my son, I would do it completely different. I would legitimately probably have him drive nothing and just work on raising capital and raising capital and raising capital because your resume doesn't necessarily matter on the backside. I would just try to conglomerate as much funding as I could and then take one brief shot to try to push and then go, because it is almost impossible for a man or a family or a group to sustain for 10 or 11 or 12 years at the amount that we're asking to get. Mom and pop can't do it.
No, but you hit the nail on the head a while ago. You were talking about your son, and you had 4 cars lined up.
Sure. It's for me. It wasn't him. As soon as I realized it was done.
Right, but I'm just saying, what was the point of those 4 cars? You can only drive one at a time.
Correct. Different classes, because I thought that we needed to go there and maximize the time. And if you see, my thought now is completely different. It really was. And I think that's what it took for me. That was a big change in me, seeing that, man, I don't know that I have enough. I can't get there.
But that's the dad that comes along with that checkbook that you're talking about to get into whoever's car, $4, $5, $6, $7 million, whatever it is. That dad is in the same boat. He knows these cars are winning, and whatever it takes, that's where my son needs to be.
Yeah.
But even at that, that's not going to guarantee that boy a ride down the road.
No. And it's the same thing. You know, the money gets them in the door to get the established deal. Then there's benefits in you getting an organization marketing it.
For sure.
Everything.
Right, for sure.
That's going to pay for some of that money. They have to bring in they're bringing a certain amount, but it comes down to how much they really desire and want to do it. And if they actually get there in the right situation with the right thing,
Maybe it works out.
It may work out. It may not. But the problem today is they get there and nobody knows who they are.
No.
Yep. You look at the guys. I think that's why you said you drove to Darlington, right? Like it was amazing to see all of those people. The intriguing part is
And that's my
how will
favorite
they
race of the year.
But how will they do that? There won't be 5 of the same people that raced at Hickory last year.
No.
And I'm once again not picking on Hickory. Let's use Tri-County. There won't be. Well, Tri-County just opened, but there won't. It's just not a duplicate over and over and over again. The Cars Tour has been the best one, in my opinion, that have been able to hold on to
They've
people.
held
But
on.
they've got a lot of the guys that are professional late model racers, which is why
They
the
have
product is
that-
better.
That handful of 10 that Greg was talking about, that's where the Cars Tour has
Yep,
those.
yep.
And it's not that, and nothing against the Cars Tour, but that's as far as we're going to go. That's the premier late model deal, Saturday
there
night
is.
deal of the area.
And listen, I talked to Lynn Carroll about this before he left NASCAR. After the UARA started struggling and stuff, I said, you're in a position now, if you can get NASCAR to back this thing, to do it, you can support every one of these short tracks, about
Exactly.
2 races a year, and switch it all this back to a limited deal, just like it did when it went from the Busch Series and the whole thing.
He tried a little bit. He just got a lot of resistance too, though. He tried doing some
Everything you
things.
do down there has resistance. So it's
Yeah.
like a war zone, and that's the thing, because they're the same thing. They're all the things you talked about. Like he said, all of them's got degrees.
Yep.
So their degree is money management. Their deal is pocket versus this.
Right. Sure.
And my main objective, so I make more money, is make sure NASCAR don't lose a dollar.
Right.
Exactly.
That's
You
it.
know, and that's instead of working the racing to make it better, to make all this go uphill.
Right.
All they're looking at is a bottom line thing to survive the all the way through the end. I can guarantee you, Bill France Sr., when he had every dime he ever thought about getting and ever would get and ever could have ever imagined a way to make, when he pulled that pistol out and said, we're going to run Talladega,
Right.
you know, and I'm going out there and run 200 mile an hour right now on this tire, and went out there and did it.
And he done it.
And went out there and did it. That same thing. Those are the kind of straight-headed motions that's got to change. It's no different than anything.
I don't know that they have that today, though.
I don't think I don't think they do today. I don't think they have. You know, I'm beyond what they're doing right now. I
To
don't
me,
even understand
if all the promoters would get together, which I think we know where that's at, and go to them and say, look, we're paying you all this. We need this kind of program. We don't need our late models every week. We need a good touring series combined out where they can take one rule book and go anywhere and race. And I believe it could start turning the thing around.
Yeah, because you got to get their weekly stuff. You got to get it less expensive.
Yeah.
The average guy can't outrun a late model stop.
No.
The average weekly, you
No
can
shot.
run.
He
one
can't buy
ra-
the tires.
That's what I'm saying. You run one race every 2 months, but you figure to go run a race. I'm not going to bring up Hickory. Anywhere you go.
Right. No, they're right.
We're
Any
not
racetrack,
bashing
right.
Hickory.
No,
Any
no,
racetrack
no,
you
by
go,
no means.
you're going to spend bare minimum $1,000
I agree.
to go through the gate.
If it's a 4-tire race, there's
Bare
no way.
minimum.
Right.
Well, there is no place you go that is not 4-tire. I mean, far as
Right.
if you're
What
buying
we're talking
tires,
about. Yep.
yeah. So you're taking 4 tires and you're spending $1,000 going to race. The most chance you got, now this is $1,000 with a $70,000 car, motor, and everything, with another $100,000 worth truck and trailer towing it,
Right.
another
People.
$25,000 in people and all this stuff. So anyway, when you get it through the gate, you got a chance to win $1,500. So if everything goes perfectly right, you don't bend a fender, bend a wheel, do anything, you have got a chance to get $500, not profit $500.
Right.
Get $500
Just get it back.
because you didn't count wear on motor, transmissions, rear ends, or anything involved.
But in defense of that, Greg, if you take what Rick Hendricks or Joe Gibbs spent to go to Homestead and won the race, did he win enough money to cover that one event for that one car?
No, the one thing he did, and it's the same thing we all did in this deal, the one thing he did is make Mars corporate.
Sure.
the most celebrated
Sure.
candy in the country.
Sure.
Exactly.
And they're all this. So they're going to put that other money, and that's the only way it can rotate around as a
100%.
racer. But I'm not even talking about the guy that wins a race. I'm talking about the one thing I did when I raced is when I was traveling, especially when I traveled, before I started running the ARA and all that stuff, I would go run a different track about every weekend somewhere. I'd look at who had 150, 200 laps, paying $3,000 to win or something. But I always looked at who paid like 11th or 12th. We paid $400 for tires. If it paid 11th place, paid $350, I knew I could lose $200.
Yep.
And I could do
Make
it.
a shot.
I could take that risk for $200.
That's awesome.
But if you're going to lose, if the risk I'm taking, if I run second and going to lose 1,000, I can't do it.
No.
I just can't do it. That's what the winning guy. There's a chance he might walk out. He might not really make anything, but he still felt good because he got $500. But the guy in third place, $400, he lost $800 or $900. That's a house payment.
Right. No, right.
And that don't count, like you say, the wear and the tear on the motor and the wear and the. People don't count the trucks, the insurance, the taxes, and everything goes along with it. It's really scary what it costs you, which I don't understand these big tow homes to drive 5 miles to the racetrack. But
I'll be honest, I do some rental stuff, and you really do not know how much it costs till you start breaking down when you're trying to pay yourself a salary and keep the cars up and keep it maintained to the point you're not losing on the deal at the end of it.
Right.
You really get that changed my perspective of what I was doing over the years racing. And that's the reason people rent cars today, because you can come in here and spend the amount of money you do to get set up to go race. You're still going to hire me.
Right, sure.
You're still going to hire somebody if you want to have a chance to be competitive, start off decent, and work your way to the front. You know, you're not going to start off. There's very few, I don't care who they are or what they do, start and jump in a late model and win races. You know, they've raced other stuff and did stuff. And I think the legend cars, to me, are probably the best avenue because motor, power to the size tire ratio.
Yep.
I think it's a good deal. But, you know, it's just right now, we got to find a way to make it more, to have a dream. Got to have a dream.
Well, and I think there's a lot of dreams out there, but it's become a reality, everybody, that dream takes a checkbook, and
That's it.
we don't have a checkbook, so why dream it? You
Right.
know?
That's it,
Right.
right there.
It's sort of like say the chicken or egg. How do you get
How
one
do you
without
get
the other?
right?
And it's the same thing right now. The owners and the daddies and everybody are in such a hurry
Right.
because it costs so much money.
Got to get there now.
They need them there by 20, so they have 14 years to make the money back if they invest.
But they'll never do it. That's the thing I can't figure out. If you're paying it, I mean, if you're spending $6-7 million a year over year, I have a hard time figuring that you're ever going to get back to the positive side.
Yeah, and you know, out of defense of the teams, I mean, tires are what $2,500 a set now for.
They're huge. I don't even know.
I was talking to Johnny Davis. I think he said to run his cars at Darlington, just race day, would be $100,000. And he said, I ain't gonna make nowhere close to that. So where's it come from?
Yep.
It's back like you're talking about Mars.
Yeah.
You got to have that sponsorship to fill that gap.
Yeah, but I think this.
And it's been that way forever.
Yeah, and here's the thing: these kids, I don't care who they are. If you're bringing, let's just use Gibbs for example. If you bring 7.5 million, you're not going to bring 7.5 each year.
No,
if you do this a year or two and you cannot produce,
You're
out. It's no different than Kyle Busch with the remarks made this year with Harrison and
Gilliland.
Todd.
Yeah.
I mean, right or wrong,
That's it.
they're bringing him the money. Well, he knows that he can't, even the money they're bringing him, he's got associate stuff involved. He can't keep that associate stuff rolling for him to make money without that truck winning.
Sure.
You know, so no matter how much, and I'm sure there's a point, if you'll bring me this much money,
You can do whatever you want,
drive
yeah.
or you get tired. But
Yeah.
that guy, those parents ain't going to be able to do that either unless they're some kind of, I guess there's people that can, but you know, that just don't work out. I mean, it's a non-winning
Non-factor.
business proposition.
Yep. Well, I'm gonna end this thing. We've been on here a couple hours. I love it. I'm appreciative for everybody to check it out. Definitely hit Bodenhamer up on Facebook and give him a hard time. He loves the direct messages.
I realize there's an off button to that thing.
And Greg, we drag him in here time and again, and he's been helping us build some cars, and he's doing some rental stuff and whatever. You could definitely hit him up on social too, or call the shop, and you can get him here at Performance Center. Just like to thank everybody for checking it out. Let me know in the comments anything else you'd like to see, and hopefully we'll catch you again. Thank you.